morning. Welcome to a December 19th, 2017 County Commission meeting. We have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting to order. Commissioner Smith, we have you on the telephone, sir?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, glad to have you. It looks like we have a large special interest group here in the chambers, so I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have for us today. I'd like to take a moment and pause for a moment of silence. If you would please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes for November the 7th and November 21st.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. And I think we have a special guest here today. I think, Santa and Mrs. Claus today.
Oh, yo ho ho! Merry Christmas! Oh, hey! Wow, look at the wee little rugrats. Oh, Merry Christmas! Go ahead, there you go. Oh,
Nice.
oh, and I see we got a bunch of scallywags here also, huh? What are these? Wait. Let me take them to task. Which one of you be real Santas? R. You look like one. And what do we got here? Me name be Pirate Santa, and you must have a magic word for me. It's called yo ho ho. Can you say that? Yo ho ho. Well, will you give him a present? And sir, who may you be? John, have you been a good boy?
Some of the time.
I don't know, but can you say yo ho ho?
Yo ho ho.
Miss Claus, give him a present. And who? Wow, you may be real Christmassy. I think I'm gonna dub you Sir Christmas. And who you may be? Jim, Merry Christmas to you. Can you say yo ho ho?
Yo ho ho.
Yo ho ho. I heard all types of things about you. Let's just go on. And who may you be? Christine. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
Can you say yo ho ho?
Yo ho ho.
Good Christine.
Thank
and
you.
way down here at the very end, we have this last little scallywag here. Who may you be, sir? Frank. Merry Christmas to you, and have a blessed New Year, man. Can you say yo ho ho?
Yo ho ho.
Oh, yo ho ho, Frank. Now back to this one here.
You better
I
watch it.
checked my list twice.
You be nice to this one
Why?
because she's Rita.
Because she's Rita.
Yes, you have to be nice to Rita.
Well, then I will dub thee Madam Rita.
Thank you.
Can you say yo ho ho?
Yo ho ho.
Miss Claus, will you give her a present?
Thank you, Miss Claus.
Now, I be understanding that we're going to take a picture of all the commissioners and us Clauses, right?
That would be wonderful.
How can we do that? Oh, just stand up.
I don't know how Kirsten did it.
I know.
How you do this?
We'll Photoshop him.
Go down.
Yeah.
Let's go down.
Okay.
See, I'm giving the orders. I love this. Oh, yo ho ho. Okay. This may be our Christmas postcard for next year, eh?
Sorry, just a better picture.
This one here, I don't know. Can we all say yo ho ho as they snap one? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yo ho ho. Oh, what Christmas spirit is up here, huh? Oh. Well, I hope you all have a great meeting, and Merry Christmas to you all.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
He's more reserved than that. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Santa. I don't have rocks and sticks in my bag. We're going to move into resolutions and awards, and I have one starting out from District 1. And do we have any here from the Florida Farmers and Ranch today? Okay, Mr. Abate. Oh, here they are. Hey, how are you guys doing? Ho, ho, ho. You even wore a Santa hat today.
This is Santa.
Yeah, you forgot yours, sir. Oh.
Didn't have a cowboy hat, so we wore this.
Okay, let me read this, and if you would go ahead and speak to it, I would just love to hear what you have to say. Whereas the Florida farmers and ranchers help feed the world by producing a bounty of nutritious foods. To do this, they rely on essential partnership with urban and suburban communities to supply, sell, and deliver finished products to consumers across Florida and around the globe. Whereas rural and urban communities work together, have built our nation's rich agriculture resources so that they contribute to the health and well-being of our country and the strength of our economy. Whereas National Farm City Week, we recognize the importance of the cooperative network. Agriculture employs more than 2 million workers, including farmers and ranchers, shippers, processors, marketers, retailers, inspectors, and others who contribute an annual impact of $127 billion to the Florida economy. Wow. Whereas they perform their daily work, farmers and ranchers preserve fresh water, recharge areas, wildlife habitat, and green space. Consumers help farm families maintain their superior natural resource conservation practices by purchasing Florida agricultural products. Whereas Farm City Week activities celebrate the mutually beneficial relationships that support the quality of life we all enjoy. This week, as we gather with family and friends, I can't think this right before Thanksgiving, but we really count these relationships with one of our many blessings. Whereas we commend many Floridians whose hard work provide us with food abundance and reflect the true spirit of the state and the nation. Now therefore be it resolved, the Brevard County Board of County Commissions of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby proclaimed that November 15th through 25th moving forward as Farm City Week. Done, ordered, and adopted this regular session on the 19th day of December 2017. Congratulations. Sirs? Oh, I would like to make a motion to approve this.
Second?
Second, all in favor say aye. Aye, opposed. Passes 4-0. Oh, Commissioner Smith, you're there?
Yes, I am.
Did it pass 5-0, sir?
Yes, it did.
It did. Thank you.
I want to thank you guys for doing this. You know, every year Farm Bureau hosts this annual event. It actually starts out in Washington, D.C. The president, the week before Thanksgiving, signs a proclamation supporting and honoring the farmers of America that produce the food and the fiber. And then American Farm Bureau passes this on to all the states. And Florida Farm Bureau does it in every county in the state. And I'm glad Brevard County also honors the farmers and supports agriculture. So we want to thank you for that. We want to make everybody mindful of how important agriculture is, not only for the food and fiber, but for the economic impact it creates in the state of Florida and Brevard County. Thank you.
There's just fewer and fewer of us, as you can tell, but we're still here.
Thank you.
resolution, District 2, Mr. Barfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask Jim Ridenauer to come forward, please. I served with Mr. Ridenauer on the Tourist Development Council, and he recently did his time, as he says, and finished up as chairman. And Mr. Ridenauer has done so much for our community in economic development, TDC, every organization, and a lot of different things that we never even hear about. And we want to recognize him with the resolution. And I'll read the resolution now. Whereas Jim Ridenauer has served on the Tourist Development Council for 14 years and is past board chairman. And whereas Jim Ridenauer has volunteered on numerous boards and received countless recognitions for his voluntary work, including chairman of the Melbourne Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber's Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Chamber's representative to the Brevard County Economic Development Commission's Executive Committee and Board of Directors, the chairman of Melbourne Main Street and its Economic Restructuring Committee, Brevard Cultural Alliance, the Melbourne Police Foundation, Medicare representative on Medical Practitioners for Affordable Care, president of the Space Coast chapter of the Restaurant and Lodging Association, West Melbourne Business Association, the Tiger Bay Club, and a member of the Health First Board of Trustees. Other than that, he hasn't had anything to do. And whereas in 1999, Jim was honored as Courtyard by Marriott's General Manager of the Year for the Southeast region, and ultimately honored as General Manager of the Year for the United States and Canada. In 2000, Jim was named the National Management Association's 2000 Manager of the Year. In 2002, he received the Silver Knight of Management Award. In 2004, Jim was named Brevard County's Economic Development Commission's Volunteer of the Year. He was the first ever recipient of the Melbourne Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce Distinguished Service Award for 2005. Jim was recognized in 2009 by Space Coast Business Magazine as one of the top 10 business leaders of the year, and in 2010 as one of the most powerful people in Brevard County, and was honored in 2010 as Florida Today's Volunteer of the Year. And whereas Jim Ridenauer is highly respected by his peers in the tourism industry and the community for his leadership, vision, and professionalism during the difficult boom and bust years of the past decade, striving to make the TDC a quality organization for the benefit of Brevard County citizens and visitors. And whereas Colonel Jim Ridenauer proudly served our nation for 28 years in the United States Air Force, in Vietnam, Thailand, Germany, Panama, and the United States. He is truly a modest hero deserving to be honored for his exemplary service to his country and his community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby unanimously recognize and commend Jim Ridenauer for his distinguished career in the United States Air Force and as a valued and respected tourism professional with a passion for public service. Jim Ridenauer is a true community champion. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 19th day of December, AD 2017. Madam Chair, I make a motion that we pass this resolution.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you, sir.
Chairperson Pritchard and Commissioners, I am humbled and most appreciative of your resolution. I thank you, Commissioner Barfield, for your singular efforts. Thank you. I need to thank lots of folks, and I'll be as brief as I can be. First, of those who appointed me, and I served, starting with Commissioner Higgs, Commissioner Volz, Commissioner Bolin Lewis, and now Commissioner Smith. I thank each for their trust and confidence they placed in me. Second, to the Courtyard and Residence Inn by Marriott, who provided me with the opportunity to serve both them and the community, as Marriott's spirit to serve is so critical to who and what we are in the business community and in the hospitality industry. Third, my best friend of 56 years, Marcia, who has been and is always there for me, and is and has been the wind beneath my wings. And in my first career, flight was not possible without her, so to speak, as she allowed me to be the fighter pilot, the warrior, and the officer that many could only imagine about being. Fourth, our girls, as they have followed us all over the world, literally, and they have always been there for us today. Today is no exception, as they live, work, and play on the Space Coast with us. And finally, all our friends, many who are today, who have, for the most part, always been supportive of the ideals and positions we have espoused over the years in support of the business community and the hospitality industry. To all, my sincere thanks for this very humbling experience, as it would not have been possible without all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Barfield, I believe the next one is yours also.
Yeah, somebody may have mentioned up here about my jacket. Well, I figured it was the right time to do this. It is Christmas. So this one's one that's a fun resolution to do. It always is. This is a resolution proclaiming December 24th, Christmas Eve, as Surfing Santa Day in Brevard County. And I'd asked George Trossett to come up, and I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution, and I think they're going to have a presentation on what Surfing Santas is. I'm not going to spoil it for them either. So I'm going to go ahead and do the resolution, and then y'all can have it from there. Whereas Brevard County and Cocoa Beach are recognized as the surfing capital of the East Coast and home of the multiple-time world champion surfer, Kelly Slater. And whereas Brevard County's surf industry greatly enhances local tourism as it draws visitors to the area from around the world. And whereas Brevard's surf culture and community greatly contribute to the quality of life for many residents. And whereas in 2009, George Trossett, a member of the Brevard surfing community, and his family went surfing on Christmas Eve in Santa suits, which eventually led to the creation of a Surfing Santa event. And whereas Surfing Santas has brought national recognition to Brevard County with their updated videos each year on YouTube. And whereas Surfing Santas had a publicity value in 2016 of over $1.2 million, which included all the major networks as well as Good Morning America, USA Today, with a total reach of more than 570 million people. And whereas Surfing Santas has grown into an annual gathering with almost 650 Surfing Santas, it'll be more than that this year, and over 8,000 spectators, contributing over $60,000 to local charities. And whereas the Santa Claus himself now spends Christmas Eve on the beach in Brevard County, and I've seen him, where he can remain anonymous thanks to all of the other Surfing Santas in town, enjoying his favorite pastime, surfing and resting before his busiest night of the year. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby proclaim December 24, 2017 as Surfing Santa Day in Brevard County, done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 19th day of December, 2017 AD. Madam Chair, I make a motion that we pass this resolution.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Congratulations, Santas.
It's all yours. Yes, go ahead.
So first I want to thank you guys for doing this for us. It's a big honor, and I couldn't be prouder. We have a group of friends here today, some of the Surfing Santa gang, and I got a little something I wanted to share. This is a video we put together to kick off the Surfing Santa season. It also plays on our website, surfingsantas.org. So let's enjoy this, and then I got a couple of things to tell you. So I'm not sure what you guys are doing on Christmas Eve, but if you got a few minutes, maybe stop by Cocoa Beach and just check out the event. It's a blast. Surfing Santa's excuse me. Surfing Santa is very personal to me. My family's involved in it from the start. And I have to take this time to thank them for putting up with some of my nonsense. And especially my wife, who has been a trooper all these days and all these years. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Back in 2009, my son and my daughter-in-law and myself, I was Santa, they were elves. We went surfing in Cocoa Beach on December 24th, Christmas Eve day. My son was an elf, my daughter-in-law was an elf, and I was Santa with my elf in the background. We had one spectator. He was 3 years old at the time. This is Anderson. My, how things have changed. It all started with this picture that was in the Florida Today newspaper. Malcolm Denmark and Wayne Price and the people from Florida Today have been very generous to us with pictures and sharing the event. This picture was in the Christmas Day paper in 2009. Some friends of mine, some of them are here today, saw the picture and said, "Hey, what is Surfing Santas?" I says, "I don't know. Come join me next December and we'll figure it out." So we've gone from one Surfing Santa in 2009, and now we got 19 Surfing Santas. Look at that crowd. But it was pretty cool because we didn't know what it was, and it's turned into what it needed to be, and that's a community event with a charity side. This is a picture from 2014, and we had a pretty good crowd. We were in front of Coconuts Restaurant in Cocoa Beach. They've been very generous to us to give us parking, and we're having the event in front of their place. And it just, the community outpouring has just been nothing short of amazing. Seems like I think about something, and next thing you know, it happens. But this picture, we got a snow woman here. I mean, she's happy. We got a Grinch. Well, not all Grinches are mean. He's still with us. This is the Grinch. But when Florida Today publishes their pictures, then they put it on the AP Wire. It goes to USA Today. And on the AP Wire, this picture was viewed millions and millions and millions of times last year, all over the country. It's Commissioner Ed Martinez, Cocoa Beach City Commissioner, and well, you can't tell with that Santa hat he's got on, but he loves the event, and he participates every year. And from USA Today, then now we're getting stories very cool magazines like Coastal Living. They declared Surfing Santas as the most coastal Christmas tradition ever. Can you believe it? We've been featured in the New York Post. This was when Florida outdid New York on the most population. They used our picture to celebrate the event. Florida has more population than New York as of this December 14. So our pictures keep showing up in some of the strangest places, including, have you seen the billboards? Carol Distributing gave us an early Christmas gift. They put this Surfing Santa billboard up on 8 digital billboards across Brevard County for the month of December. I mean, I didn't ask for it. It was a gift. And what I say is, we're all riding the Surfing Santa wave. We have a nice event. The event's fun. It catches a lot of attention in the media. And people that come to the event have fun. And others have joined in to help us to make the event as good as it can be. And boy, is it getting big. We've been doing this Surfing Santa photo booth. We have it set up out here, of course. And we've really hit some very high points with it. It's just been an amazing experience. The people we've met, the places we've been, it's been awesome. And finally, after all these years, this is our 9th year with Surfing Santas, this young local surfer dude got to meet the legendary Surfing Santa. This is Kelly Slater with Peanut. Where'd he go? And he came by and got a picture with Surfing Santa at our photo booth. So, and of course, that's his statue, and that's a beautiful wave in Tahiti. Our fun has grown into YouTube videos. We have our 4th YouTube video just came out. This is our video from last year, and if you don't mind, I want to play it. It's about a minute long. But it's really cute, and it's got some insight into the people that are involved in Surfing Santas.
Florida Christmas you'll always remember, 'cause we string lights on palm trees in December, and Santa comes to Cocoa Beach on vacation. He paints in dollars for his Christmas decorations. There's many gifts that only Florida receives. A warm wind that Mother Nature breathes. Pink flamingos in the DVD scenes. You gotta be here on Christmas Eve, yeah. I don't mean to boast. Surfing Santa loves our coast. To share his stoke without his coat. Oh, Surfing Santa.
Our YouTube video page has had over 100,000 views, which I'm told is pretty good. I'm happy. Oh. And then this is this year's YouTube video that we did, and it's been Funky Cocoa Beach.
Surfing Santa, Cocoa Beach. Surfing Santa, Cocoa Beach. It's that time of year again when we gather for a cause. You can wear what you want, elves or Santa Claus. Bring your funky friends and your funky family. We'll be here at sunrise in Funky Cocoa Beach.
So these videos are all on YouTube under the Surfing Santa channel. It's been a lot of fun making the videos. We've had met a lot of interesting people along the way. It's been a real pleasure. Commissioner Barfield mentioned about our results from 2016, but this progression that we've seen as we followed our stories, in 14 we had 3.7 million people saw Surfing Santas on live TV news. This is just live TV news. There are other venues, but other media. But the growth is just, it's ridiculous. In 2015, we had 40 million people seeing Surfing Santas on live TV news programs across the country, all 50 states. And it's the two reporters, the man and the woman, and they got this B-roll playing in the background of the event. And they're bantering. Oh, I wish I could go to Florida and go surfing with them Santas. Yeah, those guys are crazy. They're going surfing in the cold water. Yeah, why don't we live in Florida? See, and it's 40 million people seeing this, which blows my mind. And then last year, Bonnie gave me this. 570 million impressions in all kinds of media. I'm pretty sure it included Facebook and Instagram and all these social media things, plus TV, newspapers, whatever. Who knows this year what's going to happen? Did I mention Surfing Santa beer? We've been honored by the Florida Beer Company they made a Surfing Santa beer. It's a triple chocolate stout. Most people like it. My wife doesn't, but most people like it. And we've got a little can. Well, it's a big can for all the commissioners that we're going to hand out in a minute. So here's the Surfing Santa beer. Here, here. So, did you hear the one about this billionaire that said he could launch a rocket and land it on a barge in the ocean? When I first heard it, I thought, that's ridiculous. And now we see it. Now, he's announced he's going to send this sports car, a Tesla sports car, in a capsule aboard a Falcon Heavy rocket, and he's going to send it around Mars, and the song David Bowie's Space Oddity is going to be playing on the radio. So he says. That's ridiculous. But you never know. So what would a normal person do when you read an article like this, that Elon Musk is going to send a sports car into space on top of a rocket? Well, you'd find out how much it costs to send a sports car into space on a rocket, because maybe we want to go with them. $90 million, you can get a ride on a Falcon Heavy to wherever you want to go, I guess. So what would a very normal person do in a case like this? He'd try to hitchhike a ride on the dang thing. So what we want to do is we want to get Commissioner Barfield and Commissioner Pritchett to try to get our little Surfing Santa dummy to get a ride in the sports car and go to Mars one of these days. Not the real Surfing Santa. Where's the dummy? Who got the dummy? Okay, so we forgot the dummy. Could someone go get the dummy?
We're on it.
Okay, so thank you, because this could be cool. I always wanted Surfing Santas to be an out-of-this-world experience. It might be. So what's George thinking about? What's George thinking about these days? Going to Mars? I'm thinking about Jimmy Buffett. I think Jimmy Buffett needs to make a Surfing Santa song and then come to our beach and play it for us. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about Google Doodles. My granddaughter made this last year, and we sent it to Google. I don't even know if it went to the right desk. We never heard anything. But wouldn't it be cool on December 24th if we could get a Google Doodle about surfing Santas? Why not? I'm thinking about a Jumbotron in Times Square. We got billboards in Brevard County. Why don't we get on the Jumbotron? And I just wanted to thank the Florida Surf Museum and John Hughes, because without their help, Surfing Santas could have never become this mess that it is. And I want to thank everybody for riding the Surfing Santa's wave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Correct. We need to have a discussion. New business and bring it back up there. Or if you just pull it for discussion.
Y'all better be smiling too. My fingers get sore. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
Yeah.
Can we leave this back here so you can be thinking about what to do with them? Going to Mars!
Yes.
That'd be quite a wave. I had a request to move new business item 6F4 up to the front. Commissioner Isnardi?
Yes, I asked this item be moved because we have a time certain in a little while, and we have individuals here that have an interest in this item. So let me just pull up my computer real quick. Come on today.
6F1, the Mills on Mills. 6, oh, sorry. 6F4.
Okay, I brought this item back, and I think I warned this commission that I was going to bring this item back. And part of my interest for bringing this back, and if you watched any of our budget meetings, you'll be the first to know that I, along with Commissioner Tavaya, were not a fan of CBOs, and this is part of the reason why, is because, you know, the decisions, which I'm sure are well-intended, are left to a board to decide, and then those recommendations come back to this county commission, where we can either modify, eliminate, add, and otherwise, and it puts not only us in a difficult spot, but it puts those agencies, ones that were awarded funds versus ones that weren't, in a bit of a spot. While I'm not a fan of CBOs, I don't believe that the Meals on Wheels program is a charity event. I believe that it is a program. I believe that it saves the county tens of thousands of dollars, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars annually in increased Medicare and Medicaid costs. They're able to get match funding, which is unprecedented, to the tune of over $1 million. Our $60,000, and along with the United Way grant, helps return those funds to the county. So while, you know, it would be nice to categorize Meals on Wheels into a charity organization, it is not an organization, in my opinion. So, you know, unfortunately, during our budget cycle, Meals on Wheels was, you know, touted as one of the strongest reasons to support CBOs, which I don't believe is fair, considering that and I'm not picking on the commission when I say this, but the commission did nothing to make sure that they received funding. And, you know, Cindy Fleischmeyer, who does a fantastic job as the leader of Aging Matters, as the director of Aging Matters, didn't want her agency or the program to be pitted against other programs that were awarded funding. So that, you know, I understand her hesitancy to approach this podium and ask the board to fund Meals on Wheels, as much as I'm sure your heart wanted to. So I opted to bring this back to the commission for consideration, that we have the opportunity to fund this because there is money available in our general fund because we overfunded our reserves. So next year, given the fact that we're going to be reducing CBO funding by another 20%, that is, it calculates to about 102,000 additional general fund monies next budget cycle even that we would get. So next budget cycle, even if we were to fund them at the same level, which obviously we'll discuss and this will come back, we'll be able to do that without any injury per se to the general fund, given that we will still be 40,000 in the green and the red, in the black. Got too much red and green with this Christmas, I'll tell you what. But again, I regret that Meals on Wheels was held as a poster child as to why we need to continue to fund CBOs, because there is not a person in this room that can, at least in my opinion, justify to me how feeding the elderly does not trump charter school transportation. Although it's important, although it's in need of the community, and I understand that, feeding the elderly, I mean, there's nothing on that list that surpassed that for me. And then the financial aspect, I mean, the money that Meals on Wheels program is able to return is unprecedented, is you know, it's a testament to the work that you do at your organization, that Aging Matter does at the organization to ensure Meals on Wheels funding. So this commission can discuss it, and I would just ask that once it's discussed that I get a chance to at least respond to make possible comments moving forward. But I brought this as a resolution because, again, we can set the funding level every year. If budget's tight or if the commission opts not to fund it, we can do that. But this year, I'm asking that we pass this resolution for $60,000 to fund the Meals on Wheels program, and it takes them out of the CBO mix. And I think if this board chooses to next year, I mean, this commission has the option of moving $60,000 from CBO funding, so this doesn't have to come out of the general fund if that's people's issues. But I think it's a shame that this organization didn't receive funding, but that decision has already been made by a majority of the board. So that's why I'm bringing this back.
Thank you, Commissioner Isnardi. Would anybody like to weigh in? Commissioner Tabaya?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It got pulled from the agenda at the 11th hour. There was the Brevard Cultural Alliance grant that was a total of about $130,000. And I'm hesitant to pulling any resources out of reserves for a whole number of reasons. But I think if we wanted to keep this budget neutral, we could look at pulling the $60,000 and change out of the Brevard Cultural Alliance. That's, while it's projects like the Symphony and other organizations like that that may be worthy, I don't think they rise to the level of the importance of the Meals on Wheels program and the amount of dollars that saves out of our budget. So if you're looking at doing it this year, I think that is a way that we could accomplish that with a simple budget, with a budget change that would have zero impact on our reserves. Just a suggestion to get the resources to that organization as soon as possible.
Thank you, Commissioner Tabaya. Commissioner Barfield?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. The issue is where that money comes from. I think of the $130,000, $100,000 is from TDC funds, which really can't be used for that. First, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the history, remind everybody of how we worked this. What came into the budget processing review back in the summer, we looked at budgeting this at the full amount, and that was not going to fly. There was a 3-2 consensus to eliminate CBO funding altogether. And Commissioner Pritchett and myself were the two that wanted to see CBO funding continue. In a compromise, I proposed that we phase it out over 5 years instead of all these organizations getting hit at one time with no preparation, and that passed 3-2. We've stuck with that budget. That budget was approved, and we went through that. But let's talk about Meals on Wheels. It's dear to my heart. My father used Meals on Wheels. It was a lifesaver for him because of the contact he had with people. So the moral and ethical side of Meals on Wheels, I agree with Commissioner Nardi. That is paramount that we take care of our elders. We're an aging population, and I think it's absolutely important. The other side of it is let's look at the financial side of this. We have an unfunded mandate we pay each year to Medicaid of $6.8 million.
That's right.
That $6.8 million is based on the number of clients that our county has. And Mr. Golden, with another red jacket, can step in here, but how it works is this. Based on the number, each county has the number of recipients of Medicaid, it's split by that amount all across the state. We don't never know how much it's going to be. Well, this passes $6.8 million. Meals on Wheels provide the service of where they deliver a meal, and a lot of times it's the only contact with people that are in their homes. They do not have contact. If they don't go visit them, they don't get that meal. And guess where they need to go then? They want to stay in their homes. Well, they have to go to long-term care. Long-term care ends up being paid most times, in a lot of cases, because these are people that are very, very low income, high need. They end up going to Medicaid to being in long-term care. Now let's look at the numbers. And this is conservative, very on the low side. It's $63,000 a year that Medicaid pays for a person to go into a long-term care.
Yep.
Now there's 1,120 clients. So let's just figure 10% of those end up having to go into long-term care because they aren't getting their meals. That equates to $6.9 million in addition to the $6.8 million we have now. Now, again, it's split around the state, but we're still looking at that amount of additional tax dollars that has to go somewhere. Is that correct? So what we have is this is a huge cost avoidance. It's a major cost avoidance. And you can look at all over the Google and everything else. Every community has this, and it's more than just the meal. It is the contact. So I agree with what Christina Nardi is saying, Commissioner Nardi. I believe, though, we need to maybe take another tact. I think it needs to be a contracted services. I think it needs to be set up as a line item specifically where we're contracting the services. It's a grant each year, and we work it that way. So I'm firmly a believer in this, and the cost avoidance is a major thing. But the other side of it is it's visiting people who sometimes don't see anyone. And I think that's something that from a moral standpoint, that's just, and maybe even more important. So I'm with you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nardi, you wanted to respond?
And, I looked at this a few different ways as to how, whether to request the board, because we could simply by motion choose to fund this for this year. With the resolution, we would have to repeal it. And I think that it not only holds this or any future commission accountable to have to justify defunding Meals on Wheels by repealing this resolution, I think that it also gives the commission, this commission, it's going to be a different commission in 2018 at the end of the year. It allows them to have that flexibility, whether money's moved from the general fund, money's moved, because although we had a plan in place, again, like you said, voted 3-2, the plan in place was to defund the CBOs over 5 years. This commission's going to change by at least one person this time next year. And not only that, 2 years from that point, it could be at $1 million again. We just don't know. It could be defunded completely in 2018. So this isolates it. This protects it. This holds this commission very publicly accountable for not only funding the Meals on Wheels program, but taking care of those in our community. I agree with you on the financial end. I'm glad you went into the numbers more. I knew I was going to ramble, so I'm glad you took that angle. But I understand the cost, not just because I'm involved in the medical field and otherwise, but I understand the importance of that contact, and that's why I look at, I don't view this as a charitable thing that we're doing. I don't view this as something that we really have an option not to fund.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, I would. I've heard all of what everybody says, and I agree with all of what's being said. However, I've spoken to Cindy Klockmeyer myself. She's chairman of Meals on Wheels. Her opinion to me was that the CBO's funding has a process, and they did not make the cut. And because they didn't make the cut, they accept that. It's part of the process. My mother used Meals on Wheels. I deliver Meals on Wheels. I support Meals on Wheels. I think it's a phenomenal program. But as Cindy said, Meals on Wheels isn't going to go away if they don't get the $60,000 from us. They would love to have it, but it's not going away. They're well funded. As I said, I personally support Meals on Wheels, and I like the idea that everybody on the board now seems to want to support them. And it's not that I don't support them, but I think that what we're doing here is making an arbitrary decision to pick winners and losers. We have a process that was designed to take commission out of the political process and try and make it a little bit more fair. And as the commissioner has already pointed out, the commission is going to change, and if it changes, the opinions can change. I think it's best to leave it in the process that we have, take it out of the hands of the commissioners and let it be. And if they qualify next year, then they get their funding. That's my opinion, and I will not support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Fleischmeyer, would you like to?
I asked Ms. Fleischmeyer to come up. Is everybody okay with that? I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Can you fill out a card when you're finished?
Yes.
Please. And state your name and address for the record.
Cynthia Flockmeyer. I am at 3600 West King Street, Cocoa, Florida. And I'm the president and CEO of Aging Matters in Brevard.
Okay. And again, I don't want to put you on the spot. You and I have had this discussion months and months ago in my office and otherwise. I mean, can you tell this commission whether or not your organization needs the funding? And I don't expect you to plead the case, but I understand that again, it wasn't fair to ask you to come up here and ask us to pull money from other agencies, and you were not willing to do that based on the fact that there was a process. But for anyone to suggest that Aging Matters doesn't need the money to fund this program is just not, it's not factual.
Every day at Aging Matters, the telephone rings, and it's one more senior in our community, one more person that's hungry. This is what we're talking about. What we're talking about are hungry people and hungry seniors that don't have access and they can't get at. If you gave us all the money in the world, we could probably take care of the folks here in Brevard. But the truth of the matter is there's never enough money. I don't believe, and I hope my board supports me on this, it's very difficult for me to stand and say that one group is better than another group, that children or seniors, I mean, I hope we're not that kind of a community. That's not the community any of us want to live in. But I do have a lot of seniors, and I want to tell you just a little story, and I'll be quick. I went to Titusville on the other day, Friday, and they were having their seniors at lunch party. They all received a gift. Every senior who gets Meals on Wheels or any other service through Aging Matters had received at a minimum of a $20 gift. These are poor community development block grant clients that have nothing. They each received gifts, and we gave them a choice of 10 gifts, or a choice of 10 different gifts, and they could have one of those 10 gifts. There was a woman who was clutching a nightgown, another woman who couldn't figure out how we figured out she wanted a blue shirt, only to know that she did ask for that and had forgotten betwixt and between, and she was excited that we could buy her something that she wanted so much. Husbands buying for wives, wives buying for husbands. This is what we are all about, not just Aging Matters, but this entire community. So when you ask me the question, is it better to look at arts, or is it better to look at hunger, or is it better to look at kids in community centers all over this community? I can't answer that. I won't answer that. But I will say that there are hungry, and you know there are hungry people in this community, and we need to feed them. They need to have somebody knocking on their door every day, making sure they're still alive and not laying in their bathroom for 24 or 48 hours. Today, we have volunteers out all over this county because we're providing 4 days of meals, and that's out of Aging Matters funding. Parish gave us a little bit of funding also, because on Christmas Eve day, Christmas, 4 days, there are no meals, because the federal government doesn't pay for those 4 days of meals. For people that are in their homes and they have absolutely nothing, they can't get out, they will go hungry. And it's not to sound really sappy, but they can die. That can cause people if you don't have food and water. So we have packed up bags, and we have volunteers all over this county giving out bags of 4 days worth of 3 meals. Canned goods, bread and peanut butter, food. That's what we do. That's what Aging Matters does to make sure. So when I stand in front of you, yes, we do need the money, and that's your decision. And we have a lot of seniors that depend on all of us, not just me, not just our board of directors or our staff, but they depend on all of us to make sure this is a safe county and that everybody goes to sleep at night with a full tummy.
Thank you. Mrs. Nardi, you...
Yeah, Commissioner Barfield, thank you for your support of the program, and I appreciate your understanding of the numbers and the financial side of it and explaining it much better than I did. Again, Ms. Flockmeyer, I didn't mean to put you on the spot as far as talking about the need for funding. I just don't think it's fair to ask Cindy to get up at a podium and try to fight another organization for funding. What we tried to do when we awarded that funding that came to us from a board, by the way, and I'll try not to keep this, turn this too negative, but a board, by the way, where I lost my sitting board member because he believed the board itself was political. The process within that board was too political for his liking, and he didn't feel comfortable serving as a member. So again, that is why there are 2 checks in place. That is why it comes back to the board. And we had the opportunity not to even defund anybody. If you think funding a not-for-profit charter school transportation is important, because that was #1 on the list over senior nutrition, and if you think funding classes for child abuse prevention, which important, still doesn't, in my opinion, come before food and nutrition for the elderly, I mean, that's fine, but we could have taken a little bit and redistributed a little bit of that funding in order to include the Meals on Wheels and seniors nutrition program. So again, that's what's led me to this. And it's okay if you don't support it, but I'm not quite sure why anybody on this board could vote not to modify the existing awards that we were given just to go ahead and turn and vote no meals. It's like saying twice that your feeding seniors is less important than the other organizations we chose to fund instead. So I'll leave it at that and just ask that, I guess, plead that this board supports this resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner Snarty. I'm going to weigh in. I agree. I believe this is a program more than a charity cause. I think we need to move forward as a commission. Maybe we can start having conversations. Just leave the Meals on Wheels thinking for a second. But when you can invest one tax dollar and the federal government comes along and gives you $10 or $20 compared to that, well, what's happening is we invest in Meals on Wheels $60,000, and the federal government's going to pour over $1 million into our community, and these are federal funds. And here's the thing: we've all paid into those federal funds, and I'm a big believer in getting our fair share. And if we aren't able to utilize these matching funds, these funds are going to go to other counties, and we're paying for them. So I want to be on top of, as we're moving forward, looking at these things where there's a federal grant of these types of numbers. I mean, $1 million does boost the economy, and as we keep getting these funds poured into our economy that help with these situations, that helps the whole economy, you know, and move better through Brevard County on top of helping elderly and children. So I'm going to ask that maybe we take a good look at what we're doing in the CBO funds, because everybody's done the catch-all phrase of charity, but they're really not. If it's helping boost the economy from taxpayer dollars that we have been paying, I think this county should get its fair share of those matching funds. So that would be something I would like to look at. I think this probably would be well served to be in a line item. And thank you, Commissioner Isnardi and Commissioner Barfield and Commissioner Tobias Smith, for your heart on trying to figure out a way to help make this happen. So one, I do agree it's a program. Three, I think financially it's just a smart move. Even if you don't have a heart for you know, doing these things in the community, it's just a smart thing to do financially. As Commissioner Barfield said, the tax savings is quite substantial of being able to put money into this and saving money down the road. And I don't know about you guys, but we pay a lot of taxes. So anywhere I can save a few and have the shift go around to where there's more return on investment, I'm always looking to do that. It's the accountant in me. I can't help that. So I think this is a good resolution. I'm going to support it, and maybe we can look at ways to tweak it as we move forward. But anytime we're getting a return like this, I'm going to vote in favor of it, because I think it's beneficial for the taxpayers. So on that, Commissioner Barfield, sorry, sir.
Just one item you touched on, the evaluation of the community-based organizations that is done through the Citizens Committee. You know, we can always look at that, look at it as a board, and make recommendations to change that.
Yeah.
So,
if I could, just real quick to touch on two items. No matter what the board decides, if we will have a contract with contracted services, and it will be treated the same as we treat every other contractor. We'll be monitoring that continues to happen, all of those things, with whatever the board decides to do. The other has to do with the process itself. The department already has a plan to come back to the board starting in February. Based on your discussion at the previous meeting, we want to bring back what the priorities are for the CBO application itself. It was a previous board that set up the current list of priorities, and based on that discussion, we feel that there's going to be a different set of priorities, different focus, so we want to have the opportunity to bring that back, and we're also going to bring back the process itself to give you some potential options on that too.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, and if you want to make a motion.
And I just want to thank Ian and thank Cindy, you know, for getting me the information I needed, the numbers I needed, and for, you know, giving me the blessing, I guess, to move forward with this. And the reason why I say that is it's helpful when you have staff in your corner as far as what we should be doing with this program. So I pray this commission passes it. And so I want to make a motion to approve this resolution.
I have a motion. Second. I have a second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Commissioner Smith, I'm sorry, was that a nay, sir?
Yes, ma'am, it was a nay.
Thank you, sir. It passes 3-2 with Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Tobias in opposition. Thank you.
So I'm going to read the resolution now?
Okay. Yes,
So I'll
ma'am.
read the resolution since it passed. Whereas Aging Matters in Brevard is a private not-for-profit 501c3 corporation dedicated to helping Brevard's aging community enjoy happy, healthy, active, and secure lives. And whereas the Meals on Wheels program operated by Aging Matters in Brevard is vitally important, providing hot, nutritious meals and wellness checks to many homebound seniors in Brevard County. And whereas these services allow seniors to continue living independently in their own homes, And whereas the state of Florida has failed to provide full funding to Meals on Wheels for programs throughout the state, and whereas in 2017, Aging Matters in Brevard was able to leverage federal funds with the assistance of Brevard County and the United Way to provide over 195,918 meals to 1,773 homebound seniors in Brevard, plus an additional 58,309 meals at the Seniors at Lunch sites. And whereas Brevard County Commission recognizes that no senior in Brevard County should go hungry, and whereas funding interruption has a potential for harmful reductions of Meals on Wheels home delivery and home checks for Brevard County elderly residents, and whereas Brevard County Board of County Commissioners supports allocating funds to help provide these services provided by the Meals on Wheels program within the county, and whereas each budget cycle, the Board of County Commissioners will determine funding levels consistent with our mission of providing nutritional support to our seniors while working within the confines of the general fund budget to support this vital program. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby commit to support the Meals on Wheels program and its mission to help Brevard's aging community, done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 21st day of December, AD 2017.
Thank you. Mr. Abate, did you want to?
Yes, I just want to get clarification. Will this include giving the county manager's office the budget authority to make the necessary changes? And then I wanted to make sure I knew the right amount that the board wanted me to put into this year's budget for this.
60,000.
Is
that
going to
And
be
that's
funded
part
out
of the
reserves?
motion?
Is that going to be funded out of reserves?
Yeah, if that's the board direction, we will, that's how we intend to do it.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
So do we need to vote on that? Or?
I think it would be beneficial to have that as part of the motion.
May I have a motion to move 60,000 in reserves over to the Meals on Wheels?
So moved.
I have a first.
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 3-0 with Commissioners Tobias and Smith in opposition. Okay, we're going to move into consent agenda. And we will have a plaque ready sometime here in the future for you, ma'am. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. The hours you guys pour in with volunteer time is, we couldn't reimburse that if we tried. Thank you.
And Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Consent agenda, Mr. Abate requested that we pull item 2A1 for discussion. Do I have any other commissioners wanting to pull any consent agenda? Okay, can I receive a motion to pass the rest of the consent agenda? Oh, sir?
One item on the consent agenda, we were going to ask to pull for discussion 2A1.
Yes, sir. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda other than item 2A1? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 5-0. Mr. Abate, item 2A1.
On this particular item, as it's a time-sensitive matter dealing with the mosquito control impoundments, we would ask the board to approve the agenda item as written with the understanding that FEMA may not approve the use of a piggyback contract for this. Therefore, we'd like the board to approve it, placing the project out to bid using the county manager and the CAO approved documents if that's going to be necessary. We are in the process of communicating with FEMA. There's to assure that we do it and we can get the appropriate reimbursement that we would be eligible for. And also as part of that motion, I'd ask the board to authorize the chair to execute a contract with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder and authorize the necessary budget modifications to complete the project if that's necessary.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, did you get what the request of the motion is? I didn't either, Mr. Abate. I was hoping y'all are going to be able to tell me. Can you tell us what you'd like that motion to be again, sir?
We'd like the motion to be to approve the agenda item as written with the understanding that the use of the piggyback contract may not be permissible. We're working that with FEMA. And if we cannot use the piggyback contract. We're asking the board to approve placing the project out to bid using the county manager and county attorney's office to approve those documents and authorizing the chair to execute the contract with the lowest responsible and responsive bidder, and to authorize staff to make the necessary budget modifications to complete this project.
Thank you. I think that's the longest motion we've ever had. So do I have a commissioner that would like to make a motion?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to try this one.
Okay.
My shorthand. I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda item as written with the understanding that the piggyback contract may not be valid, and if that is so, to go out to bid with the county manager and the county attorney's office approving it, and giving the chairman the ability to ratify it, and staff any ability to modify minor changes. Am I close?
I think you did it.
You got it, to make the necessary budget changes. Thank you.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Yes, ma'am. Second, Commissioner Isnardi. Okay, we're at public comment. I have one card. Charles Tovey.
Charles Tovey, 2555 Roberts Road, Melbourne, 32940. Back again, beating a dead horse. I want to wish all those who don't believe happy holidays. To those who believe, happy birthday, Jesus, God, my Savior. The gift of life. As an American, as waking up an American, as just waking up, I have the gift of life. That's what my Christmas is all about, almost, except for the big picture. Where do I go from here? I've had an abundance of agencies put me in this situation. Going on 10 years now, no help. How do I get out of it? Or I'm not going to get out of it, and you guys are going to drive me off my property. I have mostly electives to get my bachelor's in science, and I have a few years in Bible college, and I was engaged, might still be, I've lost contact of everything, and why am I up here now is because I'm healthier, stronger today. I don't have anything left. What do I got to lose? Nothing. What's left at my property or our property? Permanent jurisdiction. Why? It's been a progressive effort, entrapment to oust me out of my property. You guys don't want to hear it? Where do I go? Just, I'm going to walk away, and then where do I go? Fines, fees, and all the plethora of ordinances and aggression against me. I'm still looking for someone of Brevard County to assist me in clearing out a path to where we can straighten our differences. I'm not moving out of Palm Shores area as long as I'm alive. You have to murder me. I'm going to find the first person on the street to get married to and let them inherit my problems that Brevard County and Palm Shores created for me. Seniors, they need to eat, true enough, but it's hard, difficult enough for them to fix their own meals. They need help cooking and preparing and serving and everything, and if it's not happening, they don't eat, and their condition deteriorates like everything, and then it becomes a burden on the taxpayer. So if we can adopt, and thanks for the Homeless Adoption Day, 21st of this month, and if we could adopt a needy person and give a little bit of our time to help another person. This would change a whole lot of our community. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Moving into public hearings, item 4A, Mr. Holmes.
4A is a petition to vacate a public utility easement on Martin Circle in Barefoot Bay. The petitioner has requested this in order to build a shed without an encroachment, and we have no objections to this request.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Tobias, did you want to weigh in?
All good, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept, Madam Chair.
Motion to accept. And a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item B, Mr. Holmes.
Item 4B is another petition to vacate a public utility and drainage easement on Pinta Circle. The petitioner has requested this vacation in order to construct a pool deck and enclosure, and we have no objections.
Thank you. Commissioner Barfield, did you want to?
I have no objections, and I make a motion that we accept the petition to vacate.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. We're at unfinished business. We have a 10:30 certain, so I guess we'll try to. Should we go into this? What y'all thought? Go into it and break, or should we go ahead and work through other items and come back? Okay, we're going to hold you then so that, okay. All right, we're going to move to new business, item 6E1. County Manager.
This is a contract extension for AT&T. This prevents the contract rates, primarily for telephone circuits, to going into month-to-month prices, which are significantly higher. This is a follow-on effort to aid in our migration from the AT&T circuit to Spectrum circuits.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 5-0. Item F2.
Are we at F1?
I'm sorry, yes, F1.
Okay.
Neither
Commissioners,
was I.
this particular item has been reviewed by staff, the budget office, and county finance, along with the county's financial advisor, and it's to undertake a request for proposals to look at providing and obtaining a loan for a fixed rate 15-year period. Because of rising interest rates, the belief is that it would be in the county's best long-term interest to review opportunities to go into a long-term fixed rate rather than the current short-term commercial paper that's utilized, and over time it would be in the county's financial best interest to do so. So county finance is on board with this, and we would bring back the results of the RFP for the board for its consideration.
Thank you. I think this is a smart move. I think interest rates are about to start rising. Commissioners, what's your pleasure? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Tobias. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes, oh, we had all ayes. Passes 5-0. Now we're on number 2. Commissioner Barfield, this is yours, sir. Did you want to read it?
Well, let me give you a little background. It's come up before that on the Planning and Zoning Board, the current ordinance, the people that are on there are people that are very qualified and understand planning, and we'd like to open this up the way it should be, to open up to at-large appointments. It would work much better that we have certain people that have that experience. So this is strictly just to approve legislative intent and grant permission to advertise.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Isnardi?
I would support that because I'm not, again, it's hard, sometimes it's difficult to find qualified people for some of the boards, and I think that's a smart idea.
I think it's in best interest of our county also. Do I have a motion to have permission to advertise?
Yes, I'll make a motion for legislative intent to approve the legislative intent and grant permission to advertise, amending the ordinance 62-182 to allow at-large appointments and ratify existing conditions and members.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Okay, item number 3, Commissioner Tabaya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is to recognize a House bill that has moved pretty swiftly through the House and is currently sitting on the calendar. This is dealing with CRAs, and it is focusing in on ethics training. Just to give a little bit of a background, it passed its one and only committee stop, Government Accountability Committee, with a 20-to-1 vote. It's very simple improvements for CRAs. These include ethical training, procurements that follow normal processes, being transparent in performance data, common sense limits on expansion, and follow basic budgeting and auditing principles. Given the board's extensive experience in this area, I believe it's appropriate that we weigh in and lend our support. So with your indulgence, a resolution supporting the passage of House Bill 17 during the 2018 regular session of the Florida House of Representatives. Whereas Florida Representative Jake Rayburn has introduced House Bill 17 for consideration during the 2018 regular session, and whereas Brevard County is fortunate to have highly effective and responsible delegation in the Florida Senate, Senators Huckel and Mayfield, and the Florida Representatives Altman, Fine, Goodson, and Placencia, whereas HB 17 creates a more educated and ethical government by requiring employees of community redevelopment agencies, CRAs, to undergo ethics training, and whereas HB 17 helps to ensure that the creation of new CRAs is for purposes which the legislature intends by requiring legislative approval, and whereas HB 17 improves transparency by requiring a more robust annual report and adherence to an approved budget, and whereas HB 17 creates accountability by protecting against conflict of interest and setting requirements of procurement, and whereas a companion bill, Senate Bill 432, has been introduced by Senator Lee, and whereas HB 17 has garnered bipartisan support in the Florida legislature. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does let it known that it supports the passage of HB 17 due to its desire for increased ethical responsibility, transparency, and effectiveness within community redevelopment agencies. A copy of this resolution shall be provided to members of the Brevard delegation. Done, ordered, and adopted in this regular session the 19th day of December, AD 2017.
Thank you, Commissioner Tabaya. Commissioner Barfield?
Yes, I've gone through the House bill very carefully, and actually I like a lot of it. I like the ethics training, the reporting, all that's great. But I cannot support it because it requires for a new CRA has to petition the legislature to get approval to form that CRA. And that is taking away home rule. And I'll never, never give up home rule to Tallahassee. That is something we should never do because we need to be legislating at the lowest level, which is the county and the city. And quite frankly, I won't give up my vote to Tallahassee either. And I understand Commissioner Tabaya bringing this up. He opposes CRAs, but we keep having CRAs come up over and over again, and at some point it needs to stop. But for the purposes I said on this resolution, I cannot support it because it's taken away home rule. If that was taken out of it, I wouldn't have a problem, but that's my biggest concern about it.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Isnardi?
And that was my only concern about this as well. I think it's 95% of it is wonderful, but if you support a bill and 5% of it makes it terrible, then you can't support it because of that one item. I think that needs to be removed. I think any time we do give up home rule. Now, I believe that there's municipalities and there's counties that abuse home rule power where we impose, crazy restrictions. I would prefer to see a bill that eliminates CRAs altogether. That I would support, and that I would shout it from the rooftops and support a bill like that. But as far as the legislature regulating what we do with CRAs, I don't think I like that either. Again, I would prefer if CRAs didn't exist. And Commissioner Barfield, I think, having these cities and these in our county come before us with issues, I think some of our local CRAs have already proven that they're not doing the right things with the money. So I think there needs to be that accountability. And perhaps when there's good agreements with those municipalities and they start being a little more transparent and they don't do illegal or unethical things with the CRA money, and not all of them do, then we can back off. But until then, until that transparency and that accounting and those audits are in place, I want us to keep going after to make sure that they're spending those tax dollars properly.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes, I would like to weigh in. I agree that 95% of that bill is right on target. Taking away home rule from the county. And I think that our county exemplifies the fact that we can, when we want to work cooperatively with the CRAs, can bring them under control. We're in the process of doing that currently. So in the absence of taking away the home rule, I would not support this proclamation. If it goes forward without the home rule portion, I would be highly in support of it.
Thank you, sir. My thought on this is about the same. It's pretty amazing, and I like most of it too. And I think a lot of these are already being done by municipalities. And I don't know how to maybe encourage them to continue to do it unless we're moving forward. I think ethics training would be good for everybody to do if they're sitting on any board. There's some things that I didn't know. You're not even allowed to write, as an elected official, a recommendation for someone to get a scholarship. It's not ethical, and I found out a whole lot by getting through our videos that we had to do to get our requirements up here. So I think that would be very beneficial for anybody serving to find out what you can and can't do. So I think some of these things in here are very important. Being a conservative, I think home rule is the utmost of conservatism. Getting local government into the hands of the local people, I think, is the best thing. And, if there's something out of whack, this way you know them and you just vote them out of office. And so I like what we have there. No more than I would want the federal government going to the state guys and saying, this is how you're running the state of Florida. I think we need to respect who we're putting into position with taxation, with representation, and I think it's important. So therefore, I'm not going to vote to move this forward either, Commissioner Tabaya, but I do understand your thoughts with it. You were a great Florida representative, and but for that fact, I'm not going to support this either.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the comments, and I'm guessing there's going to be a lack of second, so for that, I will pull this, but I do want to point out that there was a 20-to-1 vote, and if you are not in favor of HB 17, keep an eye out for Senate Bill 432, because it's much more draconian than the House bill. That one is moving as well. It has 3 more stops. So even despite our 4 members' disdain with this, it may be something we have to live with in the near future. So with that, I request this to be pulled.
Thank you, sir. Maybe we should get a hold of our representatives and let them know that we're concerned about them making decisions for us at this level. Move to item number 5. I don't see Mr. Ellis here yet, and he's the one who won at 10:30. Should I wait a few minutes or just?
There's clerk.
The clerk. Steve, hi, how are you? Okay, we'll move into time certain. Item 5B. County Attorney, are you wanting to lead us into this, sir?
Yes, ma'am. This is a request from the County Attorney's Office for a series of actions by the board relating to the Blue Origin arrangement that we have for and I'll go in a little bit of history so everybody understands what the context is. Some time ago, the last commission that saw the Blue Origin project come before it, Blue Origin is a aerospace company that is building rockets. They're building a facility up in the Exploration Park area of District 2. They were given a grant by the County Commission in the amount of $8 million. It was approved that they would move forward with building that supposed to be a 250,000 square foot building, which is now turned into a 630,000 square foot building, and complete that. And at the time they get a CO, certificate of occupancy for that building, then the county was had promised to give them $8 million. That time was approaching, and my office, along with Troy Post from the North Brevard Economic Development Zone, which is the district that was responsible for actually paying the grant from their funds, met with the Blue Origin people and discussed the possibility of borrowing the money. And if that was if that was going to happen, then they would have to probably delay the receipt of their $8 million from the time that they get the CO till sometime in a little bit in the future. Blue Origin didn't have a problem with that as long as we proceeded, and we explained to them we would have to proceed to a validation of the bond issue, which is really not a bond issue, it's just a borrowing issue. But that means we would have to go to court to get the judge to say it was okay to give this private company $8 million, which we believe to be legal and very appropriate, given the fact we have a contract with them that says that's what we're going to do. And the reason we wanted to do that is because we have to make a good faith effort under the terms of the contract to go forward to pursue some kind of a loan. And if we can't get that loan, then we have to back off and pay them $1.3 million over 6 years. The county and the district were both parties to that contract, and at the time the contract was signed, I think it was evident to everybody that the district was too new to have any credit, and that was certainly turned out to be true. There was another deal that the district got involved with where the banks would not loan to the district specifically. So when everybody signed that contract, it was pretty apparent that the district wouldn't be able to pull a loan themselves. So it was our feeling that in good faith we would have to go forward with a county borrowing, which is what we are presenting to you today. So what we're looking for today is approval of the authority to move forward with a bond resolution that would allow the county to seek validation in front of a circuit court to determine whether or not it's appropriate to borrow and legal to borrow funds for the purposes of giving a grant to the Blue Origin organization. I would point out that the Florida statutes 125.045 does allow you to do that specifically, and says it is a public purpose for the county to give money to corporations in order to draw them into the county, which is what happened in this case, because the original deal when Blue Origin came to the county was that they were seeking opportunities in other states as well. I think of Alabama and, if I remember correctly, it was Virginia as well. So by virtue of the fact that the county agreed to give the $8 million to them, they came here, they built their facility. It's now bigger than they said it would be. I think there would be more jobs than they said there would be. And on that basis, we're coming before you and asking for you the approvals we have identified in the memo.
Thank you, Mr. Knox. Any comments from the commission before I call Mr. Ellis up? Commissioner Tabaya?
I just had one quick question. And I know we weren't party to the loan, but it's my understanding that Titusville didn't go through the same validation process with Titus Landing. Can you tell us why we are going through this validation process and Titusville did not for the Titus Landing project?
Well, Titusville didn't have Titusville had the same, I think, had the same bond counsel we have. Our bond counsel was concerned about the issue of, there's a constitutional requirement that the county can't use its credit for the benefit of a private company unless there's a proof of a overriding or paramount public purpose. And the way you establish paramount public purpose, other than opinions of the lawyers, which would be the bond counsel and myself, is to go before court and get the court to say it's a paramount public purpose, which validates the bond, which means you can go forward with it. The bonding companies typically, when they get into millions of dollars like this, will like to have some assurance that what they're doing is legal. And our bond counsel was hesitant to render an opinion without having a court say it was okay. So that's why we're doing it in this case.
Follow up, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
So can you help me with the difference? My understanding is Titus Landing is in the neighborhood of $6 million.
That's right.
This is $8 million. My understanding that this is a private company and Brevard County has no stake. Is Titus Landing, the ownership of Titus Landing, a private company, or does Titusville or Brevard County have any stake in that? I'm just trying to understand the difference.
There is a distinction between this deal and the deal in Titus Landing. Titus Landing, the $6 million went to putting in infrastructure, stormwater improvements, drainage facilities, roads that the county, turn lanes that the county would take control of and ownership of at the end of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ellis?
Scott Ellis, 2811 Breeze Ridge Road, O'Galley, Florida. I'm here to talk about the Blue Origin issue. I agree with Mr. Knox. It's lawful to give away the money. I don't appreciate it. I don't like it, but it doesn't matter. It is lawful. However, it is unlawful for the county to borrow money for operational expenses. If you are allowed to borrow money for operational expenses as a local government, you could fundamentally run in the red year after year after year, like the federal government, until you reach a point where your debt service overtakes your revenue source. In the school board's case, that happened on their capital facilities, but at least it was for capital. Local government cannot borrow money for an operational expense. It's been mentioned about the contract that was signed by InBeds. The contract is unlawful. InBeds agreed to borrow money that they cannot by law borrow. And it's not hard to do an unlawful contract. For example, I could do a contract and I could sell Mr. Knox's house with a contract. I could even give you a quitclaim deed to move the property. None of it matters. It's a useless contract. I don't have the ability to sell a house I don't own. InBeds does not have the ability to borrow money. The county cannot borrow money to back InBeds up. It's unfortunate that the loan showed up, but during the 2 public hearings that we had here, there was never a mention made of getting a loan. Each meeting discussed making 10 payments of $800,000 a year. Our belief, the only dispute we had, we felt that would be subject to an annual appropriation by the board. There was no mention made of getting a loan. There was a secret contract held by the commissioners that no one else in the public was allowed to see. So you can go for your bond validation. Our belief is it's unlawful, and we will intervene in the bond validation. There are very sound reasons why you should not borrow money for operational expenses. And this is truly an operational expense. It's not a capital expense. You have no property interest in what's being done. It's not a stadium. It's not a road. It's not a sewer plant. You have zero property interest in this facility. So therefore, our belief is it is totally unlawful to borrow money for that grant.
I have a question.
Yes.
You said a secret contract?
Yes.
What are you talking about? I don't know if I was here then or not, but I don't know a secret contract.
When the 2 Blue Origin votes came before this board, the contract was not released to the public that you were voting on. Mr. Knox will back me up on that one.
Yeah, I'll explain that to you. Like all companies who are seeking to locate in Brevard County, they have the right to ask for confidentiality of the business arrangement in their business dealings. And one of the things that they requested was confidentiality. So when it came down to working out the details of the business arrangement and what their plans were, we could not reveal that by law, because if we do, there's a criminal penalty that goes along with it, among other things. So we had that information available to the county commission, who had all signed non-disclosure and confidentiality agreements, and each one of them had access to those agreements, and they knew what was in them. So consequently, they voted based on what they saw in front of them. Now, public didn't know about it because we couldn't tell the public.
Right, but also, Scott, what the public couldn't know was about the fact that a loan was being promised. The confidentiality for the company name is very common, and we see that all the time. But the fact that money was to be borrowed for this project is not something we've ever done before.
That's true, Scott, but the provision about the loan was in the contract that was before the board when they voted on it, which couldn't be revealed to anybody.
You could always redact the company name.
It wouldn't make any difference. They were under Blue Origin, was under Project Panther at the time. You couldn't.
I mean, it's not like it was a great secret, truthfully, who it was.
Well, that may be true, but still, the details of the arrangements and the details of their business plan weren't. That's confidential.
But the disturbing thing was that the board was choosing to borrow money, issue debt, without a public discussion on issuing debt.
That may be true, but there's a confidentiality requirement. I'm sure if the board had the opportunity to do that without violating it and possibly being fined or going to jail for it, they would have done it.
Anything else?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Barfield, did you have any? Okay. Mr. Post, did you want to weigh in?
I would just mention that the narrative that we passed out came from the company, and they wanted to distribute that information to show what was in the agreement and also what they have achieved to date at the site. You'll note on that first page, it calls for the company to create 36 jobs, full-time jobs, by this time next year. They're actually on a pace to grow much faster. They already have 90 positions employed over there at this facility. They also have grown the square footage to a much larger footprint. Requirement was 250,000 square feet. They've grown it to over 650,000 square feet. So the company is meeting the benchmarks that are set forth in the agreement, and we're very excited about their prospect for growth.
Thank you, sir. I've spent a little time reading through this, and I read Mr. Ellis's comment in the paper, so I started, trying to process through it. And what I was thinking is it looks like it's a funding of a contractual obligation. And so I called Mr. Knox, and there was a contract made to Blue Origin. Whether you agree with the process or not, we're not approving whether we're doing the incentive or not, but we're trying to fund it. And there was a promise made to them that when they reach benchmarks, we would supply them with X amount of dollars. And I believe you also said, and I asked you this, you called Blue Origin and asked if they would, take it over time, and they said no, they agreed to up front, and that's what they want. So you have Mr. Bezos, head of Amazon, and he wants us to abide by our promise. But even on this, if we're looking at what we're trying to do today, you said all we're doing today is we're going to send this off to an entity of people that go ahead and will tell us if it's legal or not to do this, correct?
Yeah, it'll go to the circuit court, and the court will rule on whether it's legal or not. I mean, Mr. Ellis brings up points that he has a position. We don't agree with that position. I don't think this is an operational expense at all. It's a contractual agreement, and we are required to pay our contractual agreements. So I don't think that's going to be the prevailing position.
So if we vote to move this forward to go to circuit court, and then we'll kind of have an answer.
Yes.
Yeah, and then also we're doing due diligence, as we promised Blue Origin, is what we would try to do as a county also. So we're abiding by our promise.
Right.
Okay, and one other thing, I just have to say this for Blue Origin. They were going to build a 250,000 square foot building, and it's over 650,000 square feet, and they did it in like 9 months. I got to go out and tour it, and it's just amazing. And it's Blue Origin, and all of them are kind of like, hips. They call it blue. So I think they're just really neat. They're creating 330 jobs of $89,000 a year, and they've also started venturing into new projects. So this is really blowing up out there, and I'm so glad we have it. It's just a wonderful thing. So, Commissioner Isnar, you have your light on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I read through this contract, and I don't pretend to be an attorney, but aside from the legal concerns of our clerk, which I given his history, I respect and I know that he knows what he's talking about. And aside from the fact that $8 million to a guy that is the richest man in the world, worth over $90 billion, I mean, aside from all of that, I mean, this contract reads, the district may apply for financing from a bank or other financial institution in an attempt to provide the in total grant. However, if the district cannot obtain financing, or if the financing terms and requirements proposed to the district for the provision of the award to the company in total are determined to be unfavorable by the district and the county, then such event shall not relieve the district of its obligation to pay the award amount of $8 million. Now, the repayment schedule on here shows years 1 through 6. So what am I missing? I mean, we have the option to pay it over time, according to this contract.
No, you missed the part about good faith.
Okay. But where is that in the contract?
Hold on a second, I'll find it for you.
I mean, good faith financial decision, if our clerk, who's the financial auditor of the county, tells us that it's not legal to pay for these types of expenses and...
Well, let me tell you, the clerk, I believe, is wrong on that, dead wrong. So that shouldn't be your determining factor here today, because I don't think the clerk's right about that. And I think we have agreement from bond counsel on that. But the fact that the clerk does think that that's the case is what warrants the filing of the suit for validation. And we knew that Mr. Ellis would have a problem with it because he's had a problem with this since the day it started. Use best efforts to seek out and utilize, I'm sorry, I got the wrong one. Oh, I can't put my eyes on it right now, but there's always a good faith obligation in every contract. So I mean, we have to make an effort to at least get the money, and the district. The district can go out to the banks and say they're going to say no to the banks. They've got to go elsewhere too. They're supposed to go to the
argument to me made by the district was that they wanted to have those funds available now for other projects.
That's correct.
And that's fine. But whether or not you agree with the North Brevard Economic Development Zone getting $3 million of tax increment per year. I don't think that that's a valid reason to try to take out a loan for $8 million or for the payment and to pay over $1 million in interest so they can do more projects and provide more incentives for billionaires. I have a hard time swallowing that.
I guess, Commissioner, the only other option you have is to come up with $8 million and pay them.
Okay, or be sued, right?
Pardon me?
Or let them sue us.
Amazon.
Yeah, which is not, that may be something you want to do, but I don't think it's a great policy to let.
Of course not.
People
I don't think it's a
come down
great
and do
policy
that.
to give $8 million to a billionaire either, so.
Mr. Post?
Oh, I was just going to say, Madam Chair, to answer the Commissioner's question that Section 3.2.2, the first sentence speaks to providing the incentive in toto.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Tabaya?
I think you're referring to a bad faith suit. If we don't meet that, my question is knowing that we have a homestead exemption coming down the pike that'll cost us in excess of $7 million in general fund, and an uncertain housing market. What's your legal opinion of a bad faith suit coming about if instead of going forth with a loan, we went with the payment schedule that is laid out in the document itself?
Well, I think the district has to make an effort to get the loan. I think the county, who's a party to the contract, is certainly in a position to help do that. In fact, that's the only party that's going to be able to get a loan. They can do that one of two ways. They can go out and seek a loan, or they can take money from their reserve accounts, borrow the money from that, and pay the Blue Origin, and then let the district pay them back. That's another way to do it. But that's something that the county manager is, I think, a little bit shy about doing because he's got other issues that relate to reserve accounts like hurricanes and the like.
Okay, Commission, what's your pleasure?
What is, the exact motion, does it come back to us again?
It does.
Yeah, after it goes through validation, the actual contracts for the bond issue itself will have to go out for RFP first, and we'll come back to you for the award of that.
So we'll only see it at the award?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I've been listening to Vincent, and I, like Commissioner already, have a great deal of respect and faith in our esteemed clerk of court, Mr. Ellis, but I think what we're doing here is simply making it an effort to make good on our promise that we would pay them in lump sum. And we are simply seeking the opportunity for a circuit court to tell us that we can or we cannot. If we can, then we will. If we can't, then we have the option of paying Blue Origin over 6 years. And so I think that's the bottom line question here. So I would be in support of letting the court make the decision.
Thank you, sir. Is that a motion?
Yes, I would like to make that motion that we move forward and allow the court to make the decision.
Thank you. Commissioner Barfield?
Yes, I know Commissioner Tobias brought up about the homestead exemption, and the payment schedule they have here at basically about $1.38 million a year for 6 years. Well, last year is a little bit less. How does that relate to what the payments would be if it was financed?
Is that a question for me? Oh, yeah. Of course, I have to qualify it by saying I'm not the county's financial advisor, but my understanding is that the type of interest rate range we would likely be looking at would probably put the repayment of the principal and interest each year at just under $1 million. In the pro forma that I think we generated on the zone that I think I had the chance to share with each one of you during your briefings, we're able to show that we can very comfortably cover that amount and still have some additional monies to use for new projects. So this would be a change or a swing of about $400,000 to $450,000 more each year that would have to be allocated toward this project.
Thank you, sir.
Quick.
Commissioner Tobias?
Sorry. And thank you, Mr. Post. That sounds like just very important to talk about the difference real quickly. The $1.38 million is a course of 6 years. Is that correct?
I think the number you're referencing is in the agreement.
Yes.
And that, excuse me, that's essentially dividing the $8 million over a 6-year period of time and coming out with what the cost would be to pay that $8 million. No interest charge at all, just the $8 million.
So just to be clear here, I don't want to say you sound like a used car salesman, but to get the lower price of under $1 million, we would have to extend that loan. First of all, get away from the 0% unless we know an area where we're going to get 0% loan. We had a discussion. You think we were looking at you said somewhere in the 3.5% range potentially?
We were projecting between 2 and 3.5%, somewhere in that range.
And again, from 6 to 10 years. So adding 4 years onto this repayment plus an interest to get below that $1 million threshold that you spoke of. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. In our assumptions, we were using a 10-year amortization and a 10-year term.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 3-2 with Commissioners Tobias and Isnardi in opposition.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
One issue that Mr. Knox brought up that I once again like to get some clarification on is that if this validation went forward, that we would go ahead and make the first-year payment, which is what Blue Origin had requested.
Yes, sir. Mr. Knox?
Not to hold that up.
Yeah, when we talked to Blue Origin, they were concerned about the length of time it would take to get the validation done. If there was no opposition to it, it's typically a 60-day process, and that would have been within the 120 days, and we could have done the full payment. So they requested that we at least make the $1.3 million payment for the first year, if it goes longer than that 60-day period. Since the clerk has indicated they're going to intervene, that probably is going to extend the date for resolution by the courts beyond the 60 days.
Thank you. The one thing I just have to say, I've been up there since before the zone was put into place and after, and the economic driver from the zone's abilities up in District 1, it was really bad before we had an ability to drive in some businesses, and people were going to come to a place that had nothing going on and everybody moving out. This thing's starting to work. We're starting to get the businesses in. Blue Origin's got the building built. They're going to start manning it now and bringing in the employees. OneWeb brought in Ruag, all kinds of new companies. And I know they're space-oriented, but, you don't build a 675,000 square foot building just to leave it and not to do what you're going to do. And what's exciting, too, is he's got new things he's starting to put out in publicity of what he's going to do out of that building. And it's pretty exciting what's coming into the area with the space opportunity and jobs and families. And even the housing market up in District 1's taken off. It puts a lot of smiles on our faces up there, because a while ago it was tough for people to put food on their tables. So I really appreciate everything we're doing, and the way the money's spent, it's all for jobs and economic recovery. And I just think it was a brainstorm. So, and it's benefiting the whole county. And Blue Origin's actually in District 2. So thank you all for that. Oh, Commissioner Tabaya, did you?
Thank you. I think the county attorney's office is looking for a motion here, and this was not in our packet. So I just had a couple points of clarification questions.
Which motion, sir, are you talking about?
I think he's going to have to look for one for the first year's payment. So my questions are...
Which one? Sorry, go ahead.
If, with your indulgence. Okay. Where would the first year's payment of 1.3, almost $8 million come from if we were to pay this out in the first 60 days?
Here comes Troy back to answer that question for you.
I thought I was concluded. We did consider this as a possibility. Last year in our fiscal year, we had monies actually budgeted for making a full year's worth of principal and interest payments on the Miracle City Mall project, Titus Landing. Because of the benchmarks that were required on that project, they didn't actually qualify for the incentive until this most recent fiscal year in May. So that means we're carrying forward a pretty large balance coming into the current fiscal year. So our plan was to take some of those proceeds and apply it toward this Blue Origin plan.
Follow-up. So just to be clear, you do have $1.379 million in the bank to satisfy that first year's payment. Is that correct?
We do have the allocation, yes, sir. It will require a BCR to come back before the commission, but we could do that, yes.
And then one quick follow-up. If this does receive validation and a bond does come back to the county, would we then be looking at, instead of an $8 million bond, a $8 million less the $1.38 million?
Yes, sir.
Is that
would be correct, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Knox, are you needing a motion?
Yeah, we needed a motion to go forward with that payment if it's required.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Yeah, I would like to make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Smith. Do I have a second?
I'd like to second it.
Second by Commissioner Tabaya. All in favor, say aye. Aye. It passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ellis, for coming out. Mr. Burkett. Okay. We are going back to Ms. Rozenka's item, unfinished business, 5A.
Good morning, Chairman Pritchett, members of the County Commission. My name is Kim Rosanka with Cantwell and Goldman, Cocoa Village, Florida. I'm here representing LTM of Florida Holdings, LLC. Before I begin, I'd ask for 10 minutes, if I may. As you know, there's over 150 pages of documents in here. I've just handed you another one. So I would ask for you to give me 10 minutes.
Can I have a motion from the commission to give her 10 minutes?
Make a motion we allow 10 minutes.
I have a motion to have a second. Second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank
Passes.
you. With me here today is Mark Mattioli. He is a representative of LTM of Florida Holdings, LLC, and also Stuart Buchanan, formerly of the county in Palm Bay, who is our planning consultant for this matter. Before you is the issue of jurisdiction. It's not ownership. My client is merely seeking legal access to his property. The document I just provided to you sums up this entire issue. This is the property appraiser's official map dated February 28th of 2013. This is the county map relied upon by most everyone in the county, as well as Florida Power and Light and AT&T. It shows Miller Cove Road as being in the county. My first question for you, is it more likely than not that Miller Cove Road is under county jurisdiction? My second question for you, was it reasonable for LTM of Florida Holdings to believe this was a county road? The answer to both these questions must be yes. Initially, my client believed it was a simple matter of asking to pave 2 roads that show on every map as roads within the county limits. He planned to pave the 800 linear feet of Miller Cove Road and the 160 feet of Old Dixie Highway, whether it be a road or a driveway. This was August of 2016. As time went on, Miller Cove Road became a hot potato. No one wanted to claim jurisdiction or ownership of this road. Now it seems like everyone, except the county, wants to claim a piece of Miller Cove Road. My client has been attempting to resolve this access problem for over 9 months. I want to talk briefly about the county attorney's and the town attorney's memos, which came to you late last week. Both catastrophize as to what will happen if you do as we are asking, either accept the plat or approve a cross-access easement, which we have provided to you. But neither memo provides the full view of the law. There is a third way that roads are accepted for use as public roads. That has nothing to do with Florida statutes. Such acceptance is by use of the roads by the public. Again, use by the public. Neither the county attorney nor the town attorney have addressed this type of acceptance with case law, with legal precedent. I have repeatedly in the documents before you. And both the county attorney and the town attorney imply that lawsuits will follow if you give my client legal access to his property. Unfortunately, if we're unable to resolve this access problem today, a lawsuit will result, and it will be a Pandora's box of a lawsuit. It will involve the town, the county, FDOT, FP&L, AT&T, all of the property owners in the 1923 plat, as well as the county property appraiser. Probably will need to include the tax collector, since the alleged owners of the 331 feet of Miller Cove Road have never paid taxes on that property. Maybe Mr. Ellis would like to join in too. Maybe he could intervene as well, so we'd have all the constitutional officers. This court case could take years. My client has already been denied use of this property for 9 months. He'll seek damages for his inability to use the property. He will seek to void and vacate all of the resolutions that the town has adopted, which were provided to you in the title opinion. We will seek attorney's fees from the town and possibly adjacent property owners under the wrongful acts doctrine. The lawsuit will create more impact than any action you could take here today. As to the town's claim to Miller Cove Road, I was absolutely stunned to read in the town attorney's letter that it now thinks it may have some ownership interest in Miller Cove Road, especially since as far back as May, there was a letter saying, we don't have any ownership interest or jurisdiction over this road. This is a completely new approach to harassing my client. My client has been harassed by the town repeatedly. They have been unreasonable, interfering, and defamatory to my client. Many of you know the story about how my client was nearly arrested due to a call by a town official to the sheriff's office. You'll hear more about the town's unreasonable actions today from third parties. But let's get back to the more likely than not. Why should you believe that a court is more likely than not to determine that Miller Cove Road is a county road? There's many documents in your package which I've already provided, but I'm going to summarize for you 5 reasons. First, the county exercised jurisdiction over the plat when it vacated First Avenue in the plat in 1963. This was a county resolution dated June 20th, 1963. This shows jurisdiction, not ownership. County Code 86-63 only allows the county to vacate roads within its jurisdiction. It says jurisdiction in the ordinance. A vacating ordinance is not similar to a quitclaim deed, as I have heard bantered about before. There's no law to support that vacating is like a quitclaim deed. 2, the county, in its motion for summary judgment, in a similar Brevard County case, Merritt Industrial Park versus Brevard County, a 2012 case just now heading to trial in March of next year, the county specifically identified vacating of roads in a plat as a showing acceptance of a platter's common law offer to dedicate the rights of way in a plat. 3, county maps, including the emergency 911 map, show Miller Cove Road as a roadway. 4, substantial use of Miller Cove Road by the public, use by a commercial nursery, use by right-of-way by FP&L and AT&T, and use by Waste Pro. These uses are all cited in case law and its Attorney General opinions as showing acceptance by the public, creating a county interest in the land for street purposes, which is held in trust for the benefit of the public. No ownership is required. This is directly from an AGO opinion, which I will provide to you when I'm finished. Number 5, the annexation ordinances by the town from '88 and 1991 specifically state, quote, the county of Brevard has sole interest of record in and to the real property, end quote, of the Indian River Home Site plat. So, this Miller Cove Road, really Central Boulevard, looks like a road, has been used as a public road, and has been treated as a public road. Therefore, under the duct principle, it probably is a public road. It is more likely than not that it is a public road. Since it was not annexed by the town, none of these roads were annexed by the town when it annexed the plat, the lots and blocks of the plat. It must have stayed within the jurisdiction of Brevard County. Briefly, I need to discuss the red herrings brought to this issue. Both the county attorney and the town attorney have attempted to divert this commission's attention from the jurisdiction issue. They've claimed many defects with the title search, the title opinion, and the survey. The title search by Old Republic merely pulled recorded documents from the public records. A title examiner is not qualified to make a legal opinion on the validity of those documents. A lawyer is qualified to make legal opinions on the validity of those documents by way of a title opinion. A title examiner is not an expert witness, as the town attorney would have you believe. It is a fact witness. An attorney is an expert witness. As to the survey, Bob Breel created the legal description that he used to survey Miller Cove Road in Old Dixie. The legal description was used by the title examiner. That legal is attached as Exhibit A to the cross-access easement agreement we've provided to you. The survey does have the notation that Miller Cove Road was added to the survey of parcels on November 16, 2017. This notation is located at the bottom lower right above the project number information. Mr. Breel is the only expert of record qualified to opine as the location of the attempted vacating by the town of 331 feet of Miller Cove Road. Mr. Breel has opined that the 331 feet vacated is west of the railroad tracks and not in the current Miller Cove Road. My request for today on behalf of my client, the Commission has the authority to declare the plat was accepted by the county as early as 1963, when the first vacating occurred, or it could accept it as today, should you choose to do so. This is the preferred action. The Commission can also approve the cross-access agreement with the indemnity provision provided to, which I'll give to you again. You can change all the notations of driveway to road. That is what my client intended to do and has no problem with it. You can change owner to jurisdiction of. Simply because the county attorney's office did not recommend any of these actions does not mean you cannot accept the plat or approve the agreement. Please consider whether a court is more likely than not to find that Miller Cove Road is a county road. That whether a court will grant my client legal access by Miller Cove Road, which has all the indicia of a public road. unpaved but a public road. I thank you for your time. If you have questions for me or my client's representative, please let me know. He doesn't intend to speak unless you have direct questions. And I have for you both the indemnity provision again, because I just sent it yesterday, and portions of the AGO opinion I was referencing.
Thank you, Ms. Rosanka. Mr. Buchanan?
Good morning. My name is Stuart Buchanan, and for the benefit of some of our new commissioners, previously I was on your county planning staff. I was also employed as part of your public works staff. Specifically, I worked with the county attorney's office preparing what's called joint planning agreements and interlocal agreements. These are between the county, the Board of County Commissioners, and your local municipalities. Those agreements address many things, including the transfer of roads, right-of-way, and other public improvements. As Mrs. Rosanka said, you have two choices before you: the acceptance of the plat, or as an alternative, the granting of a cross-access easement. You've seen the extensive concerns written by the county attorney's office on the acceptance of the plat. You've also seen a couple concerns about granting a cross-access easement. This is not a new item. These roads, or paper roads as they are sometimes referred to by staff, has come before the commission several times in the past. In one of the worst case scenarios, Brevard County was forced to design, permit, construct, and maintain a brand new public road. This was many years ago. It's referred to as Satellite Boulevard. This is not what we're asking you to do, nor would we ask that the county commission place itself in a position to have to do one of those roads again. By saying that not only that it's not right-of-way, but that you have no ownership interest, is going to create a ripple effect far outside these chambers. It's going to affect your fellow elected officials, and particularly your constitutional officers. If these are not publicly owned, the property appraiser hasn't correctly or has incorrectly not assessed them for taxes for that last 80 years. The tax collector hasn't collected the money. Our sheriff's deputies may have issued traffic violations on these roads when they weren't, in fact, roadways at all, or even under public ownership, should you take that position. The clerk has processed these cases. Look at how the clerk has addressed these with deeds abutting these particular paper roads have been recorded. There's another item that you should consider. Roadways and water bodies do not have zoning district assigned. Now, when you vacate a road, that's easy. Half the road gets the abutting zoning district, and the other half of the road gets the other zoning district. If you're saying that these are not only right-of-way, but they're not even publicly owned, you can't have blank spaces on your official zoning map. The commission will be forced to do administrative rezonings, dozens of them. If you believe you had a good attendance today, commissioners, when Mr. Calkins and his staff is forced to send out hundreds of rezoning notices to people that really won't understand what they're receiving, that the road next to their house that they thought for years was simply an unbuilt road is now going to go through a rezoning, that's a very tough thing to explain to members of the general public. Our client is willing to accept a cross-access easement to build a private drive. There is specific language in that easement to address other concerns that can be brought up in the code, things like width, things like driveway versus roadway. But what it does do is prevent this commission from having to become responsible for another public road or even a private road that you may be asked to take over in the future. The two options that you have before you bring resolution of this matter, and I will say the same thing to you today that I would have advised this commission of 2 years ago. If you're unwilling to accept the plat, simply grant the easement for whatever ownership interest you have. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, sir. Oki Lopresti? Hi, sir. If you'd state your name and address.
Oki Lopresti. I live at 8255 Shoreside Lane, Merritt Island, Florida. I'm here on behalf of my buddy Mark. We were out there one day. He invited me out there to see the property, and while we were there, deputy sheriff showed up and said that there was criminal activity going on. Well, I thought that was a little strange, so when you're accused of criminal activity, I think you're allowed to know what it is. So we asked him what the criminal activity was, and he wasn't exactly sure. So we next asked to speak with the supervisor. And he made the comment that this issue was way above his supervisor. It was basically came down from not the sheriff, but someone right below the sheriff. So he made a phone call, and we waited around, and he came back to us and said, "This is a civil issue. Have a nice day. We'll see you later." So I'm here just to relay that story for them.
Thank you, sir.
That's it.
Mark Mattioli.
My name's Mark Mattioli, and I live at 4880 Silver Oak Boulevard, Palm Shores. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'll try to answer them the best I can, and I apologize if I'm a little nervous. I'm not used to speaking.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ed Washburn.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is, as I said, Ed Washburn. I live at 3609 Bruno Circle, Melbourne 32940. The Town Council of Palm Shores authorized me to speak on this issue. I am their planning and zoning consultant. We agree with the county attorney's opinion that to deny this request. It's unclear, in our opinion, who owns the property known as Miller Cove Road. I spoke with Mr. Mason and Mr. Miller, and they are adamant that they think they own one half of the north of that property, one half of that north right-of-way. I'm going to skip around here. This all started when the applicant purchased surplus property from FDOT. One parcel was the back half of a retention pond for US 1. The other parcel, which is in the county, was south of that parcel. So there's a total in there somewhere a little over 4 acres. FDOT had access to that property. They went through their retention pond and could get back to the back of it. So they didn't worry about any access. It would probably have been nice had Mr. Mattioli hired Ms. Rizonka at the outset and done the due diligence, and then they would have found out there was some questions about who owned Miller Cove Road. I worked for Brevard County for about 14 years. I served in the same position that John Denninghoff is sitting in now. I served as a county planning director. I served as assistant public works director, and I served as permitting and enforcement director. I've seen a lot of unpaved road agreements, and there are a lot of paper streets throughout the county. If you permit a driveway on one of these paper streets, you're going to open up Pandora's box, I can assure you. You can ask John Denninghoff a little bit more about it after I sit down if you want to know how the unpaved road, those people who are sitting on the council who come from the cities, you don't really have to deal with that. The county deals with it a lot. It's been said that the town of Palm Shores has harassed Mr. Mattioli. If you look at your packet, you'll see something that they have furnished you says looking west. If you look at it on Miller Cove Road, if you were to pull up the property appraiser's aerial, you would see that there were a lot of trees, a lot of vegetation, and no road base and some ponded areas in there. If you pull it up today and look at it. If you look at that picture they furnished you, you'll see that the road base has been put in that area. The trees have been taken down. The ponded areas have been filled. That was all done by the applicant without a permit. When we contacted the sheriff's office did tell us, as the gentleman before me spoke, that it was a civil matter and they didn't want to get involved. One thing we know for sure today, we don't know who owns that property. We know that Mr. Mattioli does not own it. We do know that he's done the work on it. I would urge you to deny the request until it can be proved. And I thought that's what, when we came in here the last time and the item was tabled, I thought the applicant was going to come in here with a document that was going to show who owned Miller Cove Road. We're not there yet. We've got a lot of moving parts, and a lot of people think they own parts of that moving. I've looked at Mr. Briel's opinion. I'm not an attorney, and I'm not a surveyor. But I will tell you that the plats on either end of Miller Cove Road got vacated by new subdivisions before 1992 when the vacating was done by the town of Palm Shores. So the West Central Boulevard or Miller Cove Road didn't exist west of the railroad tracks in 1992. Again, I think if you permit what they've asked, and I will tell you this, I've never seen an item in the number of years I've done this that had the volume of paperwork that came through. And each time we'd look at one, another one would come through. So it's evident, and it should be evident to you all, that we don't know who owns that property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ken Murbach? Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Yes. Ken Murbach, 157 Palm Circle, Palm Shores. Yeah, first I'd like to thank you for pronouncing my last name correctly. Almost nobody does, especially on the first try. Yeah. Our property backs up to what will be the driveway that has been put in. We've known since 2005, when we bought the house, that about the last 15 feet or so of the back of our property was a road, or road, driveway, however you guys are going to define it. A few years ago, we looked at putting in a pool, and it was designed so to be 5 feet back from our property line, not our fence line. So we've always known that was there. When the rezoning notice came through, we had already been talking with Mark. I know that since the palm trees at the back of our property and our fence could have been our responsibility to relocate. The company not only offered to either to move our fence and give us a new fence on their dime, but also either move or remove the 5 or 6 palm trees at the back of the property that were on their property. Through the entire process, they were very respectful of our time, but more importantly, of the safety of our dogs, because our entire backyard is fenced to keep our little dogs in. Mark worked with us so that everything that was done back there, the first thought was for the dogs. And all the vegetation that had been removed behind the fence was actually kind of a nuisance anyway. They were unkempt bushes and trees that the year before I paid a few $100s to have a lot of that cut back on the other side. So it's actually improved our view in the back, and we got a new fence out of it. And I like what LTM is planning to do with the property. So yeah, I support not only LTM but also Mark.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Carl Owens?
Good morning. Carl Owens, 149 Palm Tree Court, Palm Shores. My house backs up right against the Old Dixie Highway. I was out there when these gentlemen were being harassed by the private citizen who called and said there was criminal activity going on out there. We stood out there for about 10 or 15 minutes when the sheriff's department came and said that they didn't know what was going on. It was a civil matter. They were going to leave us alone. When I purchased my house in 2000, I also went to build a pool in my backyard. I had pulled the permit and everything. When the guys were there to dig the footer, the homeowners association came by and said that I need to cease and desist from building a pool because I was going to build it on Old Dixie Highway. The Old Dixie Highway runs approximately 20 feet behind my house. I was told that the Old Dixie Highway was abandoned but never formally decommissioned, and I could not build anything back there. So I ended up building a 15 by 30 concrete slab and screening in my back porch, which also I had to have a bird cage because nothing back there was to be permanent. My view out my backyard right now is of a double wide trailer, a shack, and 6 or 7 vehicles. Looks like a used car lot back there. Also, back in 2011, we had brush fires back there. The photographer from Florida Day was back there filming. As he got near the shed that was built back there illegally, he fell into a hole approximately 3 feet deep that was filled with urine and feces because squatters who were living back there on Ralph Miller's property were using that as a bathroom and an outhouse. I would love to see Old Dixie Highway recommissioned and built on the other side of my privacy fence. I've known Mark for quite a while. He does great work back there. He's landscaped. He helped me landscape my yard. He took some trees out. He put some trees in. I would love to see a highway back there or a road or something other than looking at a double wide trailer and an aluminum shack. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have no more cards. City Manager, or is John Denninghoff, are you wanting to weigh in? Or is this county attorney issue? Or
Yeah, I think it's a county attorney issue, and I think Ms. Bentley's here to speak on what she believes to be the case. I would say this. The county is a governmental entity, and we have to be very careful about whose rights we're impacting. When you go around vacating things or accepting things that you may or may not have an interest in, which I don't think you may have some interest in part of this road, but I don't think you have interest in the entire road. You impact other people's rights. When you impact other people's rights, they don't like it, and they generally sue you, and sometimes they win. There have been many takings cases decided based on a vacation of right-of-way that left somebody with no access. This case, we don't know who owns the right-of-way. Notwithstanding whatever opinion came to you in the form of an opinion from Ms. Rosenka's law firm, it was not a very, I would say, firm opinion about anything. It didn't tell you who owned it. It told you who they thought had jurisdiction over it, which I don't believe to be the case either. But, that's all something it's debatable at this point. We don't know. There is a mechanism available to the individual who bought the property who wants access to it. It's called a statutory way of necessity. He has no way to get there right now because of all the intervening property interest in it. And we've recommended that to the lawyer, Ms. Rosenka, as a means of proceeding, because and we certainly wouldn't oppose that kind of an approach to it, because the statutes give you that opportunity for this very reason. If you don't have access to the property, then the court will lay out an access system, the easiest and most convenient for you. So far, they haven't seemed, they've indicated they would prefer to sue us over their version of what the ownership is, and I think they're going to have a tough road to hoe on that. I think it'd be a lot easier for everybody if they just went for the statutory way of necessity, got the right to build that road where they want to build it, and the court would say it's okay. That's what I would recommend. Now, but Ms. Bentley can explain to you why we don't agree with their position on this.
Mr. Knox, will you say your recommendation one more time?
I believe that the property owner who wants to provide access to his property should be suing for a statutory way of necessity. Or alternatively, they can even sue the Department of Transportation who sold the property to them without access to get access across the retention pond area the same way they got to it. That's another option. But, Mr. Lincoln doesn't agree with that either, but I think either one of those two options would work for them. Now, the third option is the county can file a declaratory judgment, say who owns it, so we know what to do with it. And that may be an easier way to go at it. So then we just bring everybody into the picture and see who owns what. And as part of that, Ms. Rosanka can file a statutory way of necessity claim, and it's a counterclaim, and see if, against all the people that we'd have to join, and see if they can't establish some right to use the property, some legal right to use the property. We're not trying to obstruct the access. We're just trying to help avoid putting the county in a position where we end up having to pay for everything because we took somebody else's property or we impacted their property rights. You know, there are people claiming that they own property on that right of way.
Thank you. Ms. Bentley, did you want to? I don't think your microphone.
It's not. I'm going to have to hold it down. Okay, you have an extensive memo from us going through the details of why we think there's a problem here. I'll try to summarize it. This item was last tabled to get title work on the strip in question, which is now called Miller Cove Road. The title work that we received was internally conflicting. The title report gave one ownership interest, and the opinion from Mitch Goldman, who attached the title report, gave a different opinion of title. That just emphasizes the level of difficulty of the title problems presented by this roadway. So until those title issues are resolved, we don't think the county should be accepting title to a roadway. The request was revised. I'm going to go a little bit backwards here because we were just talking about ownership. The request was revised to ask the board to grant them an easement agreement. You cannot grant an easement unless you own the property. And we don't think you own the property, and you could be stepping into a lawsuit by granting an easement when you don't own the property. The easement that was provided to us as the proposal says in the first whereas clause that the Board of County Commissioners is the owner of certain real property. We don't believe that you are. Then in paragraph 3 of the easement, it says Brevard County Board of County Commissioners covenants that is lawfully seized and possessed of parcel A, that is Miller Cove Road. That language in the proposed document would give LTM the right to sue the county if title fails. So it's a difficult proposition for you to sign an easement when you don't have clear title to the property. The original request from LTM was to accept a 1923 plat. That plat was not just the strip that is now known as Miller Cove Road. That plat incorporated 7 streets. I think you have a copy of this 1923 plat in your package. 7 streets and hundreds of small lots. Some of those areas have been replatted. Accepting the entire plat, which mostly lies within the town of Palm Shores, those are the jurisdictional issues that give us problems with accepting the entire plat at this time. So until the title issues are resolved, we don't see where this would be a very safe move for the county due to the multiple liability issues that are presented.
Thank you, ma'am.
I do have one more item. The map that was provided by Ms. Rosanka, this large one from the property appraiser's map with the highlighting, if you look at the highlighted segment, it says private road. It does not say public road.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Tabaya?
I just got the December 19th edition. So can you explain our position or your position? Does the commission have the authority to accept the plat or approve the easement with the indemnity that's provided here? Would this put us, help me with the indemnification, what that does to opening us up to potential lawsuits?
If there's a lawsuit, at the end of the paragraph on indemnification, LTM reserves the right to approve the county's attorney that's used on this process and to approve costs. So LTM would be then controlling the litigation, in which case they might as well just control it from the beginning and clear the title before the county gets it. Also, the indemnification is only as good as the pocket that is funding it, and we have no information regarding their financial resources.
Follow up, Madam Chair?
Oh, certainly.
Help me, wouldn't it be in their best interest to provide us with an attorney that is capable and at that point, wouldn't our interest and their interest coincide?
It could be.
Now, here's the problem. If we grant an easement over property we don't own, we impact everybody else's title on that road that claims an interest in it, we've taken their property. And if that happens, we end up paying the attorney's fees for them as well as for these guys.
Ouch.
I don't know that the owner who thinks he's going to indemnify this is aware of what the attorney's fees get charged for just a simple little taking that cost you $1,000. It's astronomical. So, I mean, if you want to go that route, then he wants to go that route. He's taking a big risk. I don't think it's a risk that he wants to take it when he really thinks about it. And I think that this board didn't want to take the risk that that indemnification would be non-enforceable because it's against public policy for the county to take property without paying for it.
Commissioner Barfield?
This is a citizen's request, and we really don't have to do anything. However, I think any way you look at this, it needs to get a judge's decision on who has the title to this property. I mean, that to me seems like if there's questions on where the title is, that has to be done. So I don't know that we really need to do anything and let the judicial system, the legal system take its, go through. How can we do anything if we don't know who owns it? So,
Mr. Zanka, did you want to come up and? But I do agree with that.
Thank you. Kim Rozenka, again, representing LTM. The entire problem here is rarely does a county own a road. It's a jurisdiction issue granted to you by a plat, by a dedication of a plat, an acceptance of a plat. You can accept it by statute, or you can accept it by the document, or you can accept it by common law, which is what we have been trying to put forward here. And no one has addressed the common law acceptance in any fashion except us. However, no one to date has legally claimed ownership of the properties we've been talking about, the 800 feet and the 160 feet. Miller and Mason have never paid taxes. The property appraisers will not recognize any of those properties as being in the road. There's even notes in your file about the town had said they were going to rescind the ordinance. They never did. The level of difficulty with the title issues is because a title examiner just pulls the documents from the record. They are not able to render a legal opinion. They render what the document says, just like that map as cited by Ms. Bentley, where it says private road. It also says that, in my highlighted on the bottom right, these were just pulled from the public records. There's a 1994 invalid town ordinance that renames this as a quote-unquote private road. The town had no jurisdiction to do that. They've repeatedly said they had no jurisdiction over this road. That road is in county ownership. That's the way the county has, county jurisdiction. You're not going to get a deed to the road. It's just not going to be in the chain of title, which I tried to explain over and over again to the county attorney's office. What we were asked to do was do a title search and a survey, and that's what we did. If you don't like the language of the driveway, or you don't like the seized and possessed, I think that you can and should recognize that you have jurisdiction over this road. You do. You've exercised jurisdiction over this road. You've exercised jurisdiction over this plat. I believe it's clear. Sure, if we have to file a lawsuit, we will. And we will join everyone, and we will go the statutory way. But the statutory way gets us an easement. We need a road or the county to say we have a driveway. But this has been going on for a long time. To me, it's very clear-cut, and I just don't understand. Oh, also that indemnity language, except for the last language, comes out of the right-of-way use agreement that Parks uses. It's the indemnity provision. I've pulled it from that document. And the language that we get to choose the attorney and will pay the fees, that generally is in your insurance policy, maybe in the insurance policy you have now regarding attorneys and whom you can hire. My client wants to take the risk. He understands the risk of indemnifying you. But yes, I understand the county doesn't want more roads. We're not asking you to build a road or accept a road. Just give him legal access over an area you already have jurisdiction over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just briefly in rebuttal, I'd like Ms. Bentley to talk about a deed that she has in her possession.
This deed is in your packet. and there are a couple of other deeds with the same language. This is at OR Book 3491, page 2992, and it is a transfer from Mr. Mason to Mr. Miller, and it describes lots and blocks, and then it describes all of the north half of vacated Central Boulevard as recorded in the official records. Central Boulevard is the same thing as Miller Cove Road. So there are individuals who have deeds that purport to own, to transfer ownership of half of this roadway that you're discussing.
It doesn't really make a difference if they pay taxes on it or not. They own it or they don't own it. So if the board is one of the options that I would consider if I was sitting in your position is the possibility that the county could file a declaratory judgment to find out whether we had jurisdiction, because that seems to be the big issue that Mr. Zanka is raising. And that would help us determine whether we can do anything about it or not, or whether, and may actually help determine who owns the property as well.
Commissioner Snarty?
How long does something like that take?
Well, we have to sue a lot of people because a lot of people seem to have an interest in it or claim an interest in it.
But who is? I know that there are owners over, and people say, I've heard, or there's so-and-so that cares. I mean, there's nobody here except people that are okay with the roadway, and that's,
well,
I mean, I know, I mean, there's nobody even here except their consultant, their planning and zoning consultant from the town of Palm Shores. So, I mean, they may not like it, but nobody's here talking about why it's a bad idea. And everybody acknowledges that it's a road, so...
It's a bad idea from the county's point of view until we get it cleared up as to who can do what.
Right.
So my thought about the declaratory judgment is that it's probably a friendly suit as applied to the county, and the owner is trying to get the access because there is, you know, we're not trying to stop him from getting access. We're just trying to find out who if we have a right to do that. If we have a right to do that, that's great. We'll do it. The problem I think we're going to have is the people who claim they own part of the road, and those are the people I would think that would oppose it. If they don't oppose it, that's fine. It'll go real quickly. If they do oppose it, it's going to be a problem. It'll take longer.
Because I think we should be looking at how do we make this work as opposed to why we want our hands off and why we're so, you know what I mean? Like, let's look for solutions instead of why it's a bad idea for us and why it exposes us. There's a guy who's trying to get to his property. I mean, I think we should
statutory way of necessity is the answer for them then.
Right.
Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, and I just want to follow up, I guess, on the question that Commissioner Snarty, if it's friendly, I guess you said there's one time point for the declaratory judgment, and if it's adversarial, there's another. Can you let me know roughly how long you believe that will take, both of them? I mean, are we talking a couple months, or is this something that can be tied up for years?
If it's friendly suits generally will proceed pretty quickly. I think you can get the judge to help you out there, and you probably get it done in 6 months, I would think. If you have some opposition, it's no telling it. They're supposed to get them done in 18 months, but they never do. So it depends on what their calendars are like. But that'd be the earliest I think you can get it.
Thank you.
Mr. Barfield?
If we would do the declaratory judgments, that's just done in-house, it wouldn't be an additional cost. Can their lawyer do that?
Well, they certainly can ask for a declaratory judgment and name us as a party, because I'm sure they will. Okay. So either way, it's going to work out. We're in litigation with each other. I mean, I think our filing the declaratory judgment allows us to try to figure out who owns the property and who's got jurisdiction over it, which we're going to. I think we need to resolve that anyway. They can file whatever counterclaims they want to file. They can certainly file a counterclaim for statutory way of necessity, because all the people we're going to have to join, they would have had to join in their suit too. I think it works out better that way for everybody.
I think that sounds like a good compromise solution. So, Commission?
I had one last question. What does this mean in the interim for the guy getting used to his property? I mean, is he trespassing? Is he, I mean, and nobody knows if that road exists and who has jurisdiction over it, nobody can tell him he can't be there.
Well, nobody can tell. Well, certainly, I think somebody made the point that he does not own that road.
But then it would be up to the owner who hasn't paid taxes ever and to go after him, correct?
Well, it's not up to him. If we allow people to build on roads that they don't build roads where they don't own the property.
No, I'm not saying that he's going to build the road, but I'm saying that the road exists, because he's driving out to his plot.
I assume that he's been using whatever's out there right now
Right.
to get to the property. But I don't know that he can pull a permit to build a building. That's the
Of
difference.
course not. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he's not going to get harassed for being out there.
Well, I don't think the county's harassing him for not being out there.
Obviously, we did, or we acted on somebody calling the sheriff's department.
Well, they have to.
Well, the sheriff's department went out there. I don't know that. I think it was private owners. I understood it that called the sheriff's department. So I don't think we've been out there trying to harass the.
I know, but it wouldn't. Okay.
Mr. Barfield?
I think you missed my point.
I just, one question. What's FDOT's responsibility in this? What could it be? I mean, to sell a landlocked,
Well, typically,
makes to make sense.
Typically, in the law, there's a statute that says if you have landlocked property and somebody sold it to you that owned all the property that went between the nearest access point and your property, they implied that you would have access over the property that they still own to get to the property that you bought from them. So I don't know why that doesn't apply in this case, but that seems like it would. So that's something else that certainly that Ms. Rozenga can bring into the case, that if we file a declaratory judgment, she can add DOT as a party and bring them in and see if the judge agrees with that.
Are you recommending that we're going to file it or that we should let Ms. Rozenka file it?
Well, I think since we do need to know who has jurisdiction
Okay.
and who owns the road, we should probably
do it.
initiate it. I don't think, if they're going to file suit anyway, I don't think it's going to be any problem for them to do it that way.
Okay.
They can always raise whatever counterclaims they have, if they have any. But I'm looking at it more as a way to resolve the issue so that everybody knows where they stand.
Yeah, I agree, and he's a nice guy, and everybody seems to like it, but if there's one property owner out there that feels differently, we have to protect taxpayer funds from future huge lawsuits of just taking someone's property. So I think we have a good solution of how to move forward.
Madam Chair, can we just ask Ms. Rozenka's opinion? I don't think we've gotten her opinion on not that we may necessarily follow it, but can we get her opinion on, this may be something that she's in favor of,
Certainly.
just to get her on the record?
My client's in favor of getting it resolved. My client had hoped to get a cross-access agreement today, at minimum, because we do believe there's jurisdiction. I don't believe a DEC Act in the future would stop you from acting today. If it's 6 months, that would be great. But we had hoped to move forward. A DEC Act would be great. This is the first time I've heard the county's willing to take on that responsibility, so that is progress. But we would like to do both. We would like to have the easement agreement, and we would like to have the commitment for DEC Act. So, but I do think you do have right-of-way issues with with utilities that are on that land. I mean, so you've got FP&L and you've got AT&T that already have the use of that right-of-way because they were told by the county it's a county road. So I think that's more than just a few property owners that have to be involved. Thank you.
Commissioner Tobias?
That was my
Old
question,
Light?
yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Knox?
Yeah, Ms. Bentley just brought up a good point. As Ms. Rozenka pointed out, there's a lot of people involved that could potentially be parties to a lawsuit. And one way that we may be able to resolve that without naming all those people and without getting them all involved in it is to go to them and ask them if they would be willing to relinquish an interest by
Wonderful.
quitclaim deed to their whatever part of the road they think they own. Or if they don't own it, then at least get one that says we don't own it or something. So maybe we can chip away at the number of parties that may be involved so we can sort of pinpoint who it is that's going to be opposed to it.
Okay, I think we have direction. Commission, we good? With county attorney moving forward and getting people to do quick claim deeds, and then county moving forward with a suit trying to figure out who owns all the properties? Do I need a motion or a consensus? Let's go ahead and do a motion. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I would make a motion we file suit for the declaratory judgment.
You saved the day, Commissioner Smith. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1. Commissioner Tobias in opposition. All right, looking forward to getting that resolved for you, for everyone involved. We're on back to new business, correct? Item 6F5. All right, and I do have a card on that item, but I believe this is animal control. County Manager, did you want to go ahead and lead us into this? Or?
Actually, this is an item from the Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Well, I knew Sheriff Ivy wasn't here.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Chief Mike DeMore on behalf of Sheriff Wayne Ivy.
Thank you.
Yes, the item is a request for the board to approve the legislative intent and permission to advertise for the amendments to Chapter 14, Article 2 of the Animal Control Ordinance.
Thank you, sir. Discussion? Commissioner Isnardi.
Just a quick question, or just more like a statement, but I spoke with the sheriff last night and had a few questions. This is going to come back to us once you guys have completed your language, because it's just for legislative intent. But I had some people asking what was included.
Correct.
Or what you were going to
We'll
include. So
coordinate
those are the questions that I had, and the
Yeah,
sheriff
we'll-
was kind enough to answer them, so.
Yeah, we will coordinate a date between the county manager and attorney's office for, for the hearing for the public. Correct.
I'm very excited about the dangerous dog stuff.
We're too. I think they're going to
Or
be great.
dangerous
Yeah, they're going to
animals,
be some great additions that are going to certainly result in better practices and policies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir. I do have one card on this item. Barbara Gorin. If you'd state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Yes, Barbara Gorin, live here in Vieira, and wish you all Merry Christmas and
Merry Christmas.
Won't see you before the New Year. Happy New Year. I would like to share a statement that was authored by Pamela. Down. Okay, I would like to share a statement authored by Pam LaSalle regarding this agenda item. She is unable to be with us today, and I have her permission and encouragement to share her concerns for our community regarding this agenda item. It is unfortunate this critical item unexpectedly appeared on the agenda during this holiday season. I continue to have serious concern about risks to human health created by our county's animal control ordinances, and I have repeatedly voiced those concerns to this Board of County Commissioners as well as its prior boards. I know many of the viewers of this meeting will not be aware or have the ability to access the agenda item to read it completely, and there are several points I would like to make regarding this agenda item. The exhibits in Exhibit A are extensive in number, yet short on details about the proposed changes. To properly discuss these multiple changes will take hours before this board, and it will be physically impossible to adequately express concerns within the 5-minute time limit, which will apply when this item appears on a future agenda for its final hearing, if the vote to advertise it. I would like to note Brevard County does not have an animal advisory board, which is the responsibility of this board. It would have been the appropriate authority to consider changes to animal ordinances. In 2013, the board suspended the county's animal advisory board. I would also like to note there have been no workshops provided by the board to discuss animal control issues. The board in 2014 decided to hire a contractor to administer and enforce the provisions of the county ordinances. Hiring a contractor does not diminish this board's responsibility or authority. The general public has not been allowed to participate in the creation of these proposed changes to the animal ordinance this year or during the last revision of them in 2014. Both times the contractor had the primary influence in their creation. It is not in the public's best interest to have laws created by those who enforce them, and even more so when there is no public participation in the creation of the laws. this country and county depend on the separation of powers to protect the citizenry from authoritarian control and to allow those who administer and enforce the ordinances to also create them is un-American. I would respectfully request the board table this serious item until it can be thoroughly vetted and created by the community and the general public, and not allow the creation of changes to our county ordinance to be made by the contractor and possibly influenced by persons who may have had exclusive access. I also would request the board provide a means for public participation concerning animal issues in our county government in an effort to guide the community as promised in the county charter in section 5.6, public participation and inclusion. I would suggest promptly reestablishing the Animal Advisory Board as a suitable way to achieve this charter provision and as a means to create any further ordinance changes regarding animal services and control. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gorin. Commissioner Isnardi?
No, that's from the board.
All right. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to advertise for legislative intent for amendments to Code of Ordinances for Chapter 14, Article 2, Animal Control.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 6, Commissioner Abadi. County Manager, did you want to table this item?
I believe we've deleted that item, and we
You
can
did
move on
delete
to
it? Okay.
6F7.
6F7. Yes, sir, we are there.
That's me.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is a legislative intent to advertise and grant permission to advertise ordinance to amend Brevard County ordinance sections, and I won't read all those. What this comes from is from the cruise parking areas. There are proliferation of them being developed in all kinds of different places. And our ordinance, our zoning, doesn't put a conditional use permit on these areas. What a big concern is the safety, the public safety, because you have buses and you have parking there overnight for 2 to 3 days, maybe longer, but you have complete transportation going by neighborhoods with the zoning being BU1, BU2, PBB, PIB, IU, and IU1. All those allow to go in and rip and make a parking lot, and that's what it is. This is just a legislative intent, just so we can advertise, to come up with a means of controlling this from the standpoint of the community. And that's what this is for. I know D1 and D2, we're the ones that have the biggest impacts. So,
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Tobias, did you want to weigh in before the cards?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Tammy Dabu.
I think it's good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name is Tammy Dabu. I reside at 170 Grant Road, Merritt Island, Florida. As a Brevard County resident, I am in District 2 and very acutely aware of this situation, and there's a particular situation very close to me. I support this ordinance and to get this passed. There are a plethora of concerns, whether it be District 1, District 2, or should something else large come around in Brevard County, period. So we got to protect ourselves from these park and rides. And this overnight concern, we need traffic studies. These sites need stormwater treatment, regardless of the fill. They need landscaping, they need security, they need setbacks. All these issues need to be considered, and the only way to do that is to get on the advanced side of this, like Mr. Barfield has proposed with this ordinance, to try and get these conditionally uses addressed, because Otherwise, we're going to have flooding of adjacent properties. We're going to have huge traffic problems, especially in North Merritt Island. So I applaud to the county commission, and I begged of them to consider this ordinance and to pass it 5-0.
Thank you, ma'am. Mary Hilberg? Hi.
Hi there, I'm Mary Hilberg. I live at 3780 Sierra Drive in North Merritt Island. And I also, too, appreciate Commissioner Barfield's legislative intent and permission to advertise for this, and would encourage the board to please approve it. One is that another aspect of approving it would be that this is a designated scenic highway. And if we start opening it up to parking lots, this is not as scenic as we would prefer, particularly for the entrance to our Space Center, for tourists, so forth. The traffic congestion is an enormous safety issue, and that's something that everyone should be concerned with. It's just prior to the Barge Canal, which opens every 30 minutes, and during high traffic times, it's backed up farther than a mile, because that's where my home is, and you can't go out that way. Another is the tree removal issues. There are multiple tree removals there, and if you've ever tried to, hurt yourself. You ever try to remove a tree, a big oak or something from your property, you know that you have to go through some hoops to do that, because we're trying to preserve our trees and so forth. It wasn't just an area of peppers. Another issue is the stormwater, which is a paramount problem in North Merritt Island. I think everyone knows that North Merritt Island has significant issues in that area. And while the permit has been pulled for whatever it is that they're doing, I haven't seen the permit, but there's no site plan that I can find that shows that there's any stormwater concerns being addressed there. And lastly, the small area study that for North Merritt Island is supposed to be being carried on has been dormant for months, and for many good reasons, but it still hasn't been acted on, and this would be included in that area, in that study. So for all those reasons, we'd appreciate your approving this legislative intent, and also not approving anything that would encourage future park and play, or whatever they're called, areas on this road until we get the small area study done and we are assured of the stormwater issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. What's the pleasure of the commission? Oh, Commissioner Tobias.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as a courtesy, I'm going to vote to grant permission to advertise, but I think we need to have a little bit of background here. A number of years ago, we had some enterprising hotels that abutted the port start to charge for parking at a lower rate than what the port was charging, and then the port got a little perturbed with that and wanted to put some protections in about transportation there, and I thought that was a very fair concern of those hoteliers by providing some competition, because the port parking was higher than what the private enterprise could supply. Now it seems as though this would put a stranglehold on providing more parking, which would keep prices low. My understanding would be that if we did do this, we would eventually hit some level of equilibrium between the outside parking and the parking at the port. It would be helpful to find out whether or not the port has access for more parking there. They're very proud about not taxing, and that's a wonderful thing, but they also charge $17 a day to park if you go on a cruise. So again, I'm going to support the advertise. I would just like, my office will do a little bit, but I would like Commissioner Barfield to help us out a little bit to see that this won't, in fact, lessen competition and increase prices for the future growth of that port.
Commissioner Barfield.
Yes, and this is a conditional use permit. It's really just to get the initial, what their plans are. It's not to do away or to eliminate it. It's just to have a better understanding of, especially like Ms. Hillenberg said about the flooding and all that. We don't have really any input. They can just do this right now without any oversight. So that I'd like, by the way, this would be coming back to as on the March 1st zoning meeting. So I make a motion that we approve legislative intent and grant permission to advertise an ordinance to amend the Brevard County ordinance per those sections, and I'm not reading them all. So.
Okay.
Sorry.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. It passes 5-0. Thank you. And we have no more comment cards, so we're into board reports and presentations. County Manager Abate.
No reports.
Mr. Knox.
No report, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Barfield.
Of course I have something. Last Wednesday evening on Channel 2, NBC Channel 2, there was a presentation on the return from the shuttle program, and it was excellent. And you can actually go to Channel 2 on their website and see it. It's really a rebound from what 60 Minutes said way back when we were going down the tubes in their opinion. Well, it's the rebound now, how we are. It's very, very nice. Second thing is, you saw the surfing Santas here. They'll be here, out at the beach on Christmas Eve. Somehow I got talked into being one of the judges for the various different costumes. I don't know why. I don't understand why.
We do.
But anyway, with that, I just wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, sir. Commissioner Tabaya.
No reports, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I'm thoroughly impressed with Commissioner Barfield's sports group,
Thank you. Thank you.
except that I had to go find my sunglasses so I could watch this meeting. And I want to wish everyone blessings of the season and Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah to everyone.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Isnardi.
I just want to say thank you to Danielle Stern of my staff, and she will be mad at me for embarrassing her, but she started this program when Commissioner Anderson was here, and I think I've mentioned this before when I was looking for donations, where we sponsor 70 wards of the state, and we do Elves for Elders. And every year it seems like it gets bigger and bigger, and every year we're just overwhelmed, not just by the support from the community, but we get huge donations from county staff, and that is amazing. Danielle spends her last week before the gifts are given over picking them up and loading her car, and I'm just impressed with it every year. And maybe next year we can look at maybe partnering with Meals on Wheels, for some of that overage that we often get. But I'm really excited to say thank you to my Chief of Staff, Danielle Stern, because once again, she has amazed me this year with what she's done with the program. And thank you. We had Brevard County Fire Rescue and one of their district chiefs that went around the different stations and asked for $5 for soap for the elderly and for our program. And I think he had 50 or 60 different bottles when he came to our open house. So thank you to Tom Neidert, the district chief, and to those stations that donated. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. A couple of quick comments. And the return of the shuttle program and Brevard coming back into play. It's actually on my Facebook page. If you go there, I opened up a big link. You can click it and watch it if you'd like to. It's really good. And the 60-minute program, they slammed District 1 so bad 6 years ago. So, you could watch that and watch this. And I tell you what, the turnaround, it's a good day. And Brevard County, and I'm just so pleased at where we're going and the direction we're going in. A lot of great leadership. You guys, you're great leaders, and I love the debates that we have up here and how we end up making good decisions for our county and our constituents. And so I just want to thank you guys for that. Thank you for giving us an outlet to be able to, thank you for organizing what you did and giving us a place that we were able to give to help in that project. And thank you to all of you who donated coats. We were able to deliver coats to the elementary schools and the junior high schools, and the ladies that came out and got them were actually tearing up, to take them to the students. So thank you, community, for all you do to give and to take care of people who can't take care of themselves. It's a good place to be. To each of you, I want to say Merry Christmas. We serve together. We don't all get along, but we're starting to get a little bit of a relationship and attachment going here. So Merry Christmas to each of you. And my prayer would be that each of you are surrounded by people that love you for a few days and a few days off to be able to deal with all we have to do with during the day. So on that note, I'll call this meeting adjourned. Merry Christmas.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.